Hey now, good Monday afternoon. Welcome to a new day and a new week on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you 3 to 6 this afternoon. We've got a ton to get to after a busy sports weekend. It was an unfortunate weekend for the Kansas City Royals, who were not at all able to keep up any of their momentum from this past week. So we will recap a rough stretch in Milwaukee for the Royals before they get back in action coming up against the San Diego Padres with a 3-game set starting tonight. Also this hour, we'll talk all things NFL and NFL schedule with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated, our weekly talk about the National Football League, and we will recap the whole weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. All of that is coming up in this first hour today of 580 Sports Talk. Also coming up, we'll talk a little Chiefs. Speaking of the NFL, most of the roster is set. Matt Derrick told us that just the other day. He thinks upwards of maybe 50 spots on the roster are set right now already. So most of the Chiefs free agent moves are done, all the meaningful ones. The draft is done. Who are some guys who may be on the bubble once we get to training camp time, once we get to final roster cuts and all of that? Around the internet, there have been a few different analysts or people who have brought up different thoughts, different names have arisen in the last couple of days. We'll talk about a few of those and who are some guys we think may be in a little roster danger coming up when the training camp months approach. We will also talk a little college basketball transfer portal action. One of the Jayhawks who left in the past week has found a new home already. He just committed within the last 10 minutes, in fact. Zuby Ejiofor, he's going to St. John's. I like that fit for Zuby a lot, actually. I think that's a great fit for him. The other big man who transferred from Kansas is going to take a visit to a school not too far away. In fact, how about just 45 minutes west of where we sit right now? We will talk about Ernest Udeh, why he's taking a visit to K-State, and more later on in the show this afternoon. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll preview that Royals-Padres series beginning tonight. We've got our first What Is Wrong With You of the week. It's all coming up over the next 3 hours right here on 580 Sports Talk. Of course, we would love for you to be a part of the show. That's always the case. You can hit us up on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Same number as the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And you can hop in on YouTube as well. The name of our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. We're streaming the show live on video there. You can jump into the comment section, hang out with everybody else who's watching along. Easiest way to find us, just head to youtube.com, go to the search bar, and look up Sports on 580 will be the top result. And from there, just subscribe, and you'll be able to watch all of our live streams. How was your weekend, Dan?
It was good. It was busy. A lot of running around. A lot of graduation parties to attend with my wife. So a lot of running around. Celebrated Mother's Day yesterday with my wife's mom and her sister, who just became a mom a couple of weeks ago. Wow. So so it was busy, but it was a good kind of busy. It was a good kind of busy.
It's a fun first Mother's Day, matter of weeks later.
Yeah. So enjoyed a lot of family time, and I did have to laugh though, because my mother-in-law turned to me as we were leaving the restaurant. We had a little early lunch on Mother's Day, and she said, "We had another day off to actually relax and enjoy the weekend between now and Monday, right?" I said, "Nah, I don't think that exists on the calendar." But no, it was good. It was good.
Well, good. I am glad to hear that. And a happy belated Mother's Day to all of you who celebrated yesterday. Hopefully you took care of your mom yesterday as well. Unfortunately, the Kansas City Royals did not take care of any semblance of business this weekend. They get swept by the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee now 23-17 on the year. The Royals, we don't need to talk about what their record is for the year.
It's 12-30.
It's really bad. Look, big picture, the wins and losses do not matter. We've been over this.
Mm-hmm.
But it is unfortunate to go from, 4-5, beat a struggling White Sox team in a series, took 3 or 4 from them. But, hey, you looked good doing it. Pitching was all right. The offense looked awesome. A lot of positives to take away from that. They all evaporated over the past 3 days, and that's tough.
First of all, I don't appreciate the Royals seemingly making it their personal mission to make you and I look bad ourselves personally.
Right.
On Friday's show, the 2 takes we had about the Brewers were, hey, Corbin Burns hasn't been all that spectacular this year, and Christian Yelich is just a guy now. And then Burns shoved on Friday night. Yelich hit, what, 3 home runs in the series?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know he hit one yesterday. Monster series for him. Way to make us look good, boys in blue. Way to have our back in that regard. Second of all, the second bit of disappointment is you have the one for the low light reel. Every bad team has that moment, that play that lives in infamy that you can go back to and say, yeah, this is kind of where this baseball team was. This is the time cap. This is the play that you put in the time capsule to explain what the 2023 Royals are. And it would be the play in the third inning in which there were runners in the corners and a runner tried to steal second, and both base runners came in to score on 2 different errors on a play that ended with Hunter Dozier futilely lunging at a baseball lying in the grass in foul territory. And if you missed it, please know I am not making this up, slapping the ball in the direction of the catchers and home plate in a futile attempt to retire Christian Yelich, who scored all the way from first base on the play. I believe it was Yelich. That is the one for the low light reel. That is the one that sums it up. That is 2023 Kansas City Royals baseball writ small in that one play, in that one moment that was part of a 7-run inning, just when it looked like, hey, things are going pretty good. Bobby Witt Jr. stinging the ball, 2 doubles to start the day, 4-1 lead in the third. Lyles, yeah, he gave up the early home run, but his stuff is moving. He's coming off a complete game. Hey, maybe you can give him some decent work, and the Royals can tack on. They lost 9-6. Lyles didn't survive the third inning, and just a crummy weekend of baseball.
Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot to write home about. Like, you didn't even have any of those. Well, this weekend sucked, but Vinny Pasquantino was awesome. No, I think Vinny went hitless for the weekend, or he had 1 on Friday. He was not good.
No, for the walk yesterday. Yeah, averaged down at 269 for Vinny. Bit of a tough spell for him right now.
Which, I mean, there's
those
guys
things happen. Yeah,
and he's still very young, still very new to Major League Baseball. That's okay. You can live with that. But the downside is there's just nothing you can take away from this and say, yeah, I feel great about that. Max Castillo came in and was awesome. Well, no, he really wasn't. Like, yeah, Witt was on base a little bit. That's nice, but
he's hit the heck out of the ball yesterday. 2 for 5, had the 2-run double, and then the home run with 2 outs in the 9th that just made the final score look a little cosmetically better. But at least, again, power's coming around. Slugging percentage is up to 442. That's a positive thing from him. If you want the thing that I loved from the weekend that I genuinely liked, Nick Pratto looking more and more hitterish by the day.
Yeah, he's a dude.
Yeah, he's starting to cut the strikeouts, though he did punch out once yesterday. His strikeout rate's now down around 30% and dropping, which 30% is still a little too high. Like, I think league average is something like 22, 23%. But you can be a high K guy if when you make contact, you're bruising the baseball and you're hitting for power. And if you're drawing some walks along with the strikeouts, and Pratto's doing both of those things, I'm officially excited. Seems like too big a word, but it feels like Nick Pratto is here to stay. It feels like this is a hitter coming into his own at the major league level after a cameo that was a little bit bumpy for him last year. Everyday play at the major league level looks good on Nick Pratto right now. He's hitting the ball hard. His batting average on balls in play is still over 500, which is ridiculous. That's why he's hitting 350. But when you watch him, his hits, they're like, he's not getting a lot of infield hits. It's not a lot of bleeders. Like, he's stinging the ball into the outfield on a regular basis. And I'm excited about Nick Pratto. I am. I'll use that word. But man, mining for gold, it gets harder and harder when what you're sifting through isn't sand, it's cow manure. And that's kind of what it feels like with the Royals right now. You're panning for gold in a pile of crap. Like, it's there, but it's not a very pleasant experience.
No. I mean, even the one close game this weekend, because I know it was 9-6. That's not a completely overwhelming deficit, but I mean, it was 4-1 Royals, and then they just completely leaked that one away. The first game of the series was not close. Even the one that was close on Saturday, the Royals had 1 hit after Salvi's home run in the 5th inning. He was the first batter of the top of the 5th inning. He had a home run. They had one more hit the rest of the game, and that was in the same inning, a double that very same inning that didn't come around to score. That was it. You can't go almost 5 innings, but at least 4 innings without a hit in Major League Baseball games and win very often. That's not an easy thing to do or a place you want to be. That's Matheny era Royals. That's, wow, we scored 2 runs in the first inning. We had 0 hits the rest of the game. Like, that's the kind of games we've seen over the past few years.
And it wasn't like, again, those were real competitive at bats. The final 3 innings of the game for the Royals, they went in order and struck out 6 times in their final 9 at bats. Former Royal great, Yoel Payamps struck out a pair. Peter Strzelecki struck out the side, and then Devin Williams, who's great.
Yeah.
I mean, Devin Williams, they probably had better at-bats. They certainly had better at-bats against him than they did against Strzelecki. I was watching. But, yeah, that's not really giving yourself a chance there in those late stages, and it negated good relief work from Taylor Clark and Aroldis Chapman to keep it level going into the bottom of the 9th. Then Carlos Hernandez took the loss.
There you go. There's your big good takeaway from the weekend. Good outing, Aroldis Chapman. That's what you need.
It was a good outing.
I mean, you need those guys to keep building it up.
Walked one, but struck out a pair.
I want to go back to Nick Pratto for a second and how well he is hitting. And yes, if you want to look at some of the underlying numbers, there's reason to think not only will this regress a little bit, it might regress hard. There might be a violent correction to the mean based on his batting average on balls in play. So if you're not super familiar with that, again, we went over this the other day, but essentially, how are you performing when you're not hitting a home run, walking, or striking out?
Right. It removes the home runs and the strikeouts from the equation. Every time you put a ball into play, the result of that at bat is essentially your batting average on balls in play. And yeah, his is over 500 still, which is incredible.
So he's batting .514 when he puts the ball in play, while also striking out 37% of the time.
30% of the time.
Was it only 30? I thought it was higher than that.
It's down. It's at 30 according to Baseball Reference.
Oh.
Last year was 37, I think.
Oh, that might have been what. Okay, I might have been looking at last year's numbers.
Yeah. So this year, that's why I say it's 30% now. It's trending down. So I don't think Nick Pratto is all of a sudden a 350 hitter. Like, I don't think he's Tony Gwynn. Right. I don't think,
No.
I don't think that this is all of a sudden like Nick Pratto's just going to hit 350, 435, 533, his slash line right now. But
I would take 250 with pop.
Yeah. 250 with a little on base skill and some pop. Yeah. I could live with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the other thing too, is not all batting averages on balls in play are created equal. Like fast guys generally tend to have higher batting averages on balls in play because they can beat out infield hits. Like Bobby Witt Jr. should have a higher batting average on balls in play. The fact that his batting average on balls in play is so low, last check, it's 262. That's some reason for optimism for him. But with Pratto, man, feels like every time I look up and he's getting a hit, it's not like he's got to wipe the blood off the bat afterwards, you know? Like we used to taunt our teammates, hey, wipe the blood off the bat. When you bloop one into left, you hit a little duck fart over the first baseman's head. Like, not a lot of that for Nick Pratto right now. He is hitting the ball hard. And again, this is a young player getting really a full-time look for the second time in his career. And even though like his max exit velocity doesn't look great, there's still some numbers that are really encouraging when you look at his Baseball Savant page. And his hard hit percentage is right there with Bobby Witt Jr.'s. Like, he's, I think, really turned a corner. And it's like with MJ Melendez, it's all about more contact. The more contact you make, the more you can get to your power. But not all contact is good contact either. It's about being selective, learning which pitches you could do damage on. And this is a process. This is a process for young hitters. And Melendez is going through it right now. Bobby Witt Jr. is going through it right now. I think the worst thing for Bobby Witt Jr. is that the other guys that he debuted with from last year's class have been so good right away.
Julio Rodriguez
was awesome last year. Adley Rutschman has been excellent as soon as he hit the bigs. Now, Julio's having a tough second year.
Mm-hmm.
He's been dropped from the leadoff spot in Seattle. His numbers this year are not good. They'll bounce back. He's a great player. But for those guys to have come out great guns and for Bobby Witt Jr. on the other side to still feel like he's not quite a finished product at the plate, that hurts him in comparison. You got to let him develop at whatever speed it's going to take for him to develop, while understanding he's got to play a very demanding defensive position, and he's working hard on that and improving. All according to all of the advanced numbers, he's a vastly improved defender at shortstop so far this year. And he's also got to, bat leadoff. And that's a tough place for a young hitter to be. Ask Julio Rodriguez, who's not hitting it. Scott Service busted him down to the middle of the order. Maybe Bobby Witt Jr. shouldn't be batting leadoff. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. But I think when you look all around these, we talked about them at the end of last week, the young hitters that the Royals have, there are positive signs for all of these guys. And it's unlikely that all of them will be going, red hot at the same stretch. It's just not how baseball works. When Vinny Pasquantino struggles, he's going to need the other guys in line to pick him up. That's where Prado comes in. That's where Salvador Perez with 2 home runs this weekend steps in. So it's a team game. But by and large, there are really good things. And Nick Prado right now is the one who, certainly from the weekend, stood out the most to me as a guy doing a lot of really good things at the plate.
You can see why he was, for quite a while, a higher regarded prospect than Pasquantino. English. A more highly regarded prospect than Vinny Pasquantino.
Absolutely.
And you're seeing that bear fruit right now. We've got a comment here from Mark on YouTube who says, I'm not frustrated or angry, just kind of bummed out. Yeah, I mean, I get that at this point. Again, this is one of the more let down stretches of the year so far for the Royals. Not because they should have swept the Brewers instead of getting swept, but just because you saw positives. Like, you saw a good thing, and then you couldn't even get one. You couldn't pull out that game on Saturday, largely because your offense was just stone cold for half the game. You spent the first game and a half of the series essentially not being able to hit the ball at all. What was it on Friday? 3 hits for the whole game?
I think that's right.
I think that was Friday's number.
Mm-hmm.
You just need more consistency, and that's what this year is about. The unfortunate thing about being really bad and knowing you're really bad and it being obvious from the very start of the season that you're very bad is it makes it a long season. I don't know about you. It has already felt to me like we've seen more than our fair share of Royals baseball for this year. Like, okay, we can see some trades now. We're going to see some of the young guys really come into their own as they get more experience. No, we're just barely over a quarter of the way into the season.
Yeah. 42 games. That's a lot left. That's 120 left. And it gets harder to, again, sift through and find those positives on a weekend where, like, if they had gotten one, if they'd, managed to win the tight one on Saturday, or if they, 6 runs, a lot of times it's good enough to win a game, and it wasn't for the Royals on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because they started Hunter Dozier, and he's kind of, he obviously is.
He sucks.
He's not the reason they lost, but the record in games where he starts is not very good. So,
kind of jarring, really.
Yeah, I mean, record's not very good in games where everybody else starts either. Let's be fair. When you're 12-30, you probably don't have a talisman sitting on your bench that's gonna change that around for you.
The Royals, next up, they have a series with the San Diego Padres beginning this evening. 3-game set, 8:40 first pitch, or was it 8:38? Is that what it is? No, it is 8:40 exactly from Petco Park in San Diego. Royals have not announced their Wednesday starter yet. They'll have Keller tonight, Singer tomorrow. They get Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, and Yu Darvish as the pitchers they are facing. Seth Lugo having a good year. I mean, I see his counting numbers right here. 3-2, 3.18 ERA. He's been around for a long time now.
Yeah, and this is the first year he's been a full-time starter.
Right.
And it's gone pretty well. Like the strikeout numbers are acceptable. He's around 8 Ks per 9, keeping the ball in the ballpark. Yeah, he's been decent. Not spectacular, but he's been decent. Last 2 starts have both been really good. Like Cincinnati and Minnesota pitched really well against those teams. He's decent.
You don't see a lot of guys go from reliever to full-time starter
at 33.
At 33 years old.
7 years into their career. Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Usually it's the reverse.
He's averaging about 5 2/3 innings every time he goes out this year. Yeah, it's been a solid year for Seth Lugo. And then, yeah, I mean, Yu Darvish has been extremely consistent and effective for a long time. And then Michael Wacha has not had a great year. He's been all right. Hasn't been great. Maybe the Royals can steal one tonight off of 400-year-old Michael Wacha. I'm not going to hold my breath, but hey, maybe we'll get lucky. Of course, every Royals game can be heard right here on your home for Royals baseball and the Royals Radio Network, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Pre-game coverage will begin tonight at 8 o'clock on the Royals Radio Network with first pitch at 8:40 from Petco Park. Have you been Petco?
I have not. I went to a game at Qualcomm Stadium in 1998 when I was on a family vacation to San Diego, but no, I've not been to Petco.
It looks awesome. That would be on my short list of parks I definitely want to go to. I think San Diego, Anaheim, and Pittsburgh would probably be on that list. And I mean, Fenway, because it's one of the cathedrals of the sport. But yeah, if you get a chance, go to San Diego for literally any purpose, but that includes this Royals series this weekend. All right, we've got to get to our first break of 580 Sports Talk. Later on this hour, Matt Verderame is going to stop by to talk all things NFL. But first, we've got to get to our weekend recap with the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's up next on 580 Sports Talk. Time to recap the weekend. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. My good for the weekend. Another successful spring football season in the books. It was years in the making, but finally we got an XFL championship game. Arlington with the, what would it have been, 9-point win over DC yesterday for the XFL championship. My two favorite, longtime favorite, spring football quarterbacks going head-to-head. Jordan Ta'amu, of course, formerly of my beloved St. Louis Battlehawks. He was on the losing side for DC. Luis Perez, we talked about him a little bit last week, taught himself to play football, played at the Division II level down in Texas, has been with every single spring football league since they started popping up back in 2018. Do you know what team and league he first popped up in professionally?
Was it the spring league or was it the original? No, it was the AAF.
It was the AAF. He was the first starting quarterback and only starting quarterback of the Birmingham Iron, who you may remember from having $44 in their bank account when the league shuttered. From that to XFL champion. I saw some people ragging on them because they were like, oh, we're world champs. I saw, who was it? Pro Football Talk was making fun of them. Like, you don't have to be a jerk. Like, didn't your parents ever teach you that? Like, you can just say, good for you. Or you can just not say anything at all. Don't pick on the guys for having fun and celebrating something. Like, these are a bunch of guys who are hoping to get back to the NFL someday or never made it, or I don't know. That bothers me. Let them celebrate. Let them have fun. And shout out to Luis Perez. Got traded mid-season, became a champion. Good for him. Arlington Renegades, world champions.
World champions of the XFL. My good is that I successfully changed a tire on my wife's car this morning.
Hey.
I have a aversion for getting anything on my hands, like quite literally, and not like I don't like to work hard. Not like that kind of. I don't like to get my hands dirty. It's like I do not like having stuff on my hands. Like I go through a lot of napkins when I eat out. Like I wash my hands a lot. I do not like having stuff on my hands. But my wife had a flat tire when she woke up this morning, and thankfully the car was in the garage and not out in the rain. But I figured out how to get the spare on. I figured out how to get the flat one off. Mm-hmm. Got the spare on. We got the tire repaired. It could be repaired, and we got it all fixed today. And I helped, and it was a really good feeling of accomplishment. My bad was that my wife got a flat tire.
Yeah, that's not great. I once should have replaced the tire. It was cold. It was January. And I have really bad circulation in my hands. I have my whole life. And they just freeze up and they hurt really badly when it gets cold out. And I needed to change a tire. I was at a gas station in Lawrence. The dealership was across town. And I was supposed to go get the tire replaced. And it was so flat. I was like, I don't think I can make it across town. And I just could not do it. Like I got the tire out of the trunk and my hands just didn't work. They were just frozen. They did not work. So I put air in the flat tire and said, boy, I hope this lasts me 5 minutes. I got to get across town. I got like 2 miles to go. And thankfully I made it. I'm glad you had a much better experience with that.
Yeah, I got
also out of the rain. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah, that's no joke. I got to wash a pair of jeans I was wearing, but no, we got to figure it out. I was very proud of myself.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. My bad. Found this out this weekend. Stetson Bennett, now a member of the Los Angeles Rams, 2 times national championship winning quarterback for the University of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Spent 6 years in college. He walked on at UGA in 2017, left to go to JUCO for 1 year in 2018, came back on scholarship in 19 and 20 when he was a backup, and then led them to 2 national titles in 21 and 22. 6 years in college. Stetson Bennett somehow has not graduated and did not have a degree conferred upon him this weekend at Georgia's graduation ceremony. Now, I'm not here to criticize anyone who spends a long time in college or who takes extra years to get it done. That's not the complaint here. Okay, that's fine. If it takes you 15 years to get a bachelor's degree or an associate's or a master's or whatever, awesome for you for getting it done. For normal folks, not a problem. The NCAA, though, has rules. It's called academic progress, that every semester you need to take a certain number of credits and be working toward a degree, to the point where after 5 years, it's essentially impossible not to have one. How did he go 6 and never graduate? How is that possible? Like, it shouldn't be. The NCAA rules mean that should not be possible. And yet, one of the most high-profile players in college football the last several years went 6 years and didn't get it done.
How did Van Wilder stay in school that long? He wasn't pursuing a master's.
Van Wilder wasn't playing for a very prominent football program. Van Wilder didn't have to deal with an APR.
This is true.
That's my bad. Again,
yeah,
if it takes you a while to get your degree, that's awesome. You're getting it done at whatever pace. Good for you. You should feel accomplished. There are literally rules that should have meant he got this done in 6 years.
Wild.
Very wild.
Very wild. My ugly, we're going to talk about it in headlines. Ja Morant, you got to put the guns away, man.
Yeah, man.
You have got to make some better decisions. he stands to trick off a lot of money, not just money. Mike, he's playing a dangerous game. He needs to quit playing, and somebody needs to love him enough to tell him that he needs to quit playing that game.
I mean, he already has, right? Like, who's going to endorse that guy now? Like, NBA salary money, he'll get tons as long as he keeps playing and he doesn't literally kill someone. He'll be fine there. But like all those other big endorsement deals, no one's signing him to those anymore.
Never mind him killing someone. Like, you wave that around the wrong person,
they're going to kill you.
You can get air hold. Like, dude, be smart.
You got to know better than that.
I can't believe 3 days of therapy didn't magically cure him.
We can't talk about it right now because we have to get to a commercial break, but the sports world needs to talk more about how Adam Silver is a complete clown. Anyway, that's a discussion for a different day. We've got to get to a commercial break. Matt Verderame is going to hop on with us next to talk all things NFL here on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim.
Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
How can he not be romantic about football, man?
Matt Verderame covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated. That's where you can find all of his work. You can also check him out at SI.com. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame, and he joins us every Monday here on the program to talk all things NFL. What's going on, Matt? How are you?
Doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing pretty well. Glad to be back after a fun weekend. Anything fun for your family for Mother's Day?
You know, I got to tell you, my family, unfortunately, has been going through it the last week. Everybody's been going through being sick as a dog for a couple of days, and this weekend it was my turn. But the Mother's Day stuff will happen. We're just going to have to move it to next weekend. But everybody's rallied at this point, so it's positive.
Well, good. No, that's the best way to start a new week. Everyone's starting to feel better. Well, enjoy the week late Mother's Day festivities when they do come.
Yeah.
Last week, speaking of festivities, the NFL always makes a big deal about it. The schedule finally came out for the entirety of the 2023 season. Anything jump off the page to you right away when the schedules came out?
I thought for the most part, the schedule makers did a pretty good job. The Giants have it right. They're on the road for 7 of the first 10 weeks. I thought, Jacksonville being in Europe for 2 straight weeks was interesting. Although if you're Jacksonville, you're used to playing in London for at least one game. And your second game is a road game, and it's against Buffalo. And I think that's a huge advantage for Jacksonville. You get to stay over there. Your bodies are adjusted to it. Your minds are adjusted to it. And you get to welcome in the Bills, who have to come all the way out there and lose a home game for it. So I thought, those couple of things stood out. Then listen, the Chiefs in December, you get some of the biggest games of the entire league schedule, and they're at Arrowhead. You get the Bills December 10th. You get the Bengals coming in on New Year's Eve. Those are, to me, the 2 best games of the year, especially that Bengals-Chiefs game. I love the fact that the NFL left those from late in the year when the implications are at their highest. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Agree with you 100% on that. I did want to really quickly touch on the Jacksonville note, playing 2 games in a row overseas. Is that the next step in a London team test run?
It's a fair point, possibly. Look, I think, they've been obviously at least talking about this for years, right? I mean, could they put a team over there? I still firmly believe that if you're going to put a team in Europe, you almost have to create a division, right? I mean, at some point over there, you'd almost have to say, look, we're going to put a division of teams in Europe. And I was actually talking about this on the radio with Orlando Alzagari, because he came up to the idea of, hey, how would this look? How would this work? We're actually talking about this last week. And he brought up this divisional idea, and I agree with him. Like, I think that's probably almost what you'd have to do, because otherwise the travel would just be insane. I mean, the American teams could do it. The American teams could go over there, play a game, have a bye week after, okay, fine. But what are you going to do if you're one of these teams, if you're in London and you're just a lone European team? You got to come over and play 3 out of 4 on the road and a couple of West Coast trips in there. I mean, it would just be insane. Plus, I think it'd be really difficult, to get free agents to go there initially. But yeah, I think, look, if you're going to do it, you've got to start looking at how that would work. But I still think we're a really long way from that happening.
As for the Chiefs, I know over at SI.com, you put out the record predictions for every team in the AFC, and recommend everyone go check that out. Again, it's at SI.com. For the Chiefs, you have them going 14-3. Their win-loss over-under for the year is 11.5 in Vegas. And I understand why the number looks like that, because you're trying to get bets on both sides and you don't want to go too overboard because everyone's going to bet the under. I get those things. But does it feel a little bit like 11-5 is too low? Because I think 14-3, 15-2 is right where the Chiefs will end up, because why wouldn't they finish in that spot? Were you a little surprised that is their win total when you break down the schedule, look at who they match up with, when they match up with them, that some people might think they'd go as little as 11 wins this year?
I'm not surprised, only because usually with Vegas, they don't go past 11.5. So, I mean, that's usually the highest total you're going to get. That being said, if Mahomes is healthy, that's the easiest money you're ever going to make. That team's winning over 11 games. I don't care what else happens. If he's upright and has, 2.5 seconds to throw the ball, it's happening. So, I mean, look at his career to this point. They wouldn't have gone under. They wouldn't even have been close to being under most years. He never would have actually gone under that total. And I don't think their schedule's that hard. I mean, last year was a year you went into the season and went, well, the division's supposedly a lot better, and they had to play the Bills, they had to play the Bengals, they had all these games. Now this year they still play the Bills and the Bengals, but I don't think there's any argument that they're not the clear team to win that division. I mean, Denver to me is at best a mediocre team. The Raiders are not good. The Chargers, I think, are good. I picked them to go 10-7, but I don't think the Chargers are going to threaten Kansas City seriously. And when you look at the rest of their schedule, they play the NFC North. The NFC North is not particularly strong. The AFC East is a good division, but the Chiefs get the Bills at home. They get the Dolphins at a neutral site, and the Pats they should beat. I mean, the only real road game they have that's difficult in that division is the Jets. I have a hard time, if the Chiefs are healthy, seeing them go worse than 13-4. I just do not believe that's going to happen.
Our guest is Matt Verderame, covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated. Joins us every Monday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Again, you can find his work at Sports Illustrated online in the magazine, or check him out on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, when you went through and took a look at all of the AFC teams and put together your schedule predictions, was there a team or teams that surprised you in one direction or another, feeling like, man, this team might struggle a little bit more than I expected because their schedule is really rigorous? Or the flip side of that, man, this team really has a favorable schedule and can maybe make more of a run than people are expecting?
So on the negative side, if you want to look at it that way, I think this might be a tougher year for Buffalo than people think. If you look at the Bills' schedule, their schedule, I would argue, is the toughest in football. The schedule's insane. I mean, they have to play the NFC East, which 3 of those 4 teams made the playoffs last year, and obviously one of them in the Super Bowl. They've got to play the AFC West, which they got to go to Kansas City. They got a Chargers team. That's not going to be easy, and I believe that game's on the road for them as well. They have to play Jacksonville, which is a home game, but it's a one. They've got to go at Cincinnati, and then they've got 6 divisional games, none of which are easy, especially the Jets and the Dolphins. I don't think there's one game on that schedule that you look at other than Denver and the Raiders at home, and you go, yeah, that's just a win. Just chalk that up, right? I mean, Washington's probably the third one in that group. It's okay. I still think they're a playoff team. I think the Bills are very good. I think there's a real shot they don't win the division. I actually think Miami's going to win the division if Tua is healthy, which might be the biggest wild card in football. On the other side of it, and yeah, if I had one regret, I feel like I was a little light on Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, I don't love Kenny Pickett, if I'm being honest. But I think the rest of the team's pretty good. I love the coach. I love the culture. And their schedule is extremely favorable. If you look at the Steelers' slate of games, look, the division's not easy, but they play the NFC West, not overly difficult. They play the AFC South. That's an easy division outside of Jacksonville. I think there's a real world where Pittsburgh's that team that every year you have a team, you look at them and go, I don't think they're great, but they're 11-6. The Giants were kind of that team last year, was, in the playoffs, won a playoff game, and I don't think anybody ever was overwhelmed by them. I think Pittsburgh could be that team where you look at them and they're a 6 seed, they're in the playoffs, and you're kind of surprised, but maybe shouldn't be.
Brendan and I were discussing this on Friday's show, and I want to get your thoughts on this take. You could tell me if it's too many Scoville units, too spicy a take, or if maybe I'm onto something here. But has this iteration, because you brought up Buffalo, has this iteration of the Bills, have they missed their moment? I don't want to say the window, because if you got a quarterback as good as Josh Allen, you have a window to be good. But have they missed their moment, their opportunity to seize the AFC?
I don't think it's too spicy. I think that they can still do it with this team, but I think the degree of difficulty is going up significantly year by year. Like, I look at the AFC now, and last year going into it, I picked the Bills for the Super Bowl. I was with everybody else. I said, look, and I wrote this for, at the time, fan side. It said, look, if the Bills don't win the Super Bowl this year, this is going to start to become a little bit of a bear on their back, because Kansas City was retooling. The Bengals still really young. The Bills just got Von Miller. And look, they were good last year. But when Von Miller got hurt, that defense fell apart, and they got just roundhoused in the playoffs by Cincinnati in their own building. And now you look at the AFC and you say, okay, well, the AFC East is a gauntlet. I do not think, even if the Bills win the division, I don't think they're going to be a 1 seed. I think there's a very good chance they're going to go on the road to Cincinnati. They're going to go on the road to Kansas City. I think, even though I think they're better than Jacksonville because of just the way the schedule lays out, if they play Jacksonville in the playoffs, I would bet you that game's in Jacksonville. I mean, the Jaguars play 6 games against the AFC South, and they play the NFC South. Like, Jacksonville could easily win 12 games this year. So I still think the Bills have the talent and certainly the quarterback, but I don't think it's crazy to say their best opportunity might have been last year, might have been 2 years. This is going to be harder now. I think the Chiefs and the Bengals are definitively better teams. And I think there's no reason to think they won't be going forward here for a little bit.
We're chatting with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk as we chat all things NFL like we do every Monday when Matt joins us. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame and go find all of his work at SI.com. Speaking of the Bengals, Matt, do you feel like they are, where we are now, and obviously we still have to get to camp and all of that, but with where they are now, do you feel like they are pretty much equal to where they were last year? Do you feel like maybe they've taken a half a step back? Or do you feel like they have taken steps to actually improve? Because I think we've seen over time with the Chiefs, who do improve every year, they add assets to their offensive, defensive lines, whatever. Do you think the Bengals have done a good job of keeping pace by also improving, or are they pretty much the same after this offseason?
So I actually think the Bengals and Chiefs are really similar in this regard. I think they're pretty much both the same teams they were a year ago in terms of how good I think they are. Now, I will say this. I think that both teams, in terms of just, if you want to be really myopic about it, just go, okay, free agency wins, free agency losses. I don't think either team lost a ton. I don't think either team gained a ton. I mean, if you look at the Bengals, they lost safeties. They might be a little weaker there. They gained Orlando Brown Jr. He's an upgrade over Jonah Williams. Even for Chiefs fans who don't love Orlando Brown Jr., he's better than Jonah Williams. So, they have that. They lost Samaj P. Ryan. They added a running back in Chase Brown, the 5th round out of Illinois. And so I think talent level, they're about the same in terms of just player by player. Now, that said, I think because they're so young, they're only going to continue to get better. And it's the same way I feel about the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs lost Juju. They lost McCole Hardman. They lost Juan Thornhill. But they replaced most of these guys. Now, Juju's the one guy you could argue, well, did they replace him? But, I think overall, like up front, yeah, they lost Andrew Wiley. They got Juwan Taylor. They're better right tackle now. But at left tackle, are they better? Are they the same? You could argue with Donovan Smith. But again, the Chiefs have a ton of young players, especially on defense, only going to get better, right? So I think in the end, both those teams are probably about the same in terms of their player-by-player personnel. But I think as the year goes on, they'll probably be even better because those young players are going to mature.
One final question for you, Matt, and this is building a little bit on what Dan asked you about with the Buffalo Bills. Are there any teams around the league who it feels like after the events of this offseason, whether it's a retirement or guys leaving in free agency, coaching changes, whatever, are there any teams that it feels like to you have seen their window close? Like the one that pops out to me, I think, obviously, is the Buccaneers. They lost Tom Brady, and they're going on to either Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield. Like, I like Baker Mayfield. He ain't Tom Brady or anything even remotely close to that. Are there any teams, and maybe it is Tampa, that feel like, yeah, we're on to a new era and maybe not a good one for them after this offseason?
I'm going to give you a weird one, and this might be something that we can play in January. You guys can all just laugh. Baltimore.
Ooh.
Because I just think when you pay the quarterback the amount of money they're paying him, and look, I'm not saying Lamar Jackson's not worth the money. Like, he is a special talent. But when you pay the guy, any guy, that much money, whether it be him or Hurts or Mahomes or Burrow, you're saying that quarterback can carry what are going to be deficiencies in the roster because you're going to have them. You simply can't afford to fill every need as you can when the guy's on a rookie deal. I look at Baltimore's defense and I say, you lost Marcus Peters, you lost Justin Houston, you declined your option on Patrick Queen. You lost Jason Pierre-Paul. You didn't really add anything. I thought their draft was fine, but you didn't add any known quantities to that defense. So I go, okay, I feel better about it now. Now, obviously, you brought in Roquan Smith last year. But I look at the Ravens and I say, I've never seen this team advance deep in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson. And I'm not saying it's all on Lamar, but at some point, you're paying a guy $51 million a year. Like, I got to see it. And I just wonder that even though I agree with them that they paid him, I wonder if by paying him, they also kind of simultaneously slam that window shut, because I don't know that Lamar is going to be able to carry what I think is going to be a worse defense, an offense that Beckham's there for a year. Rashad Bateman, can he ever stay healthy? There's a lot of questions, and all those are going to have to come up aces for them, in my opinion, to truly contend in that conference.
Matt Verderame covers the entire NFL for Sports Illustrated. You can find his work there at SI.com, and you can follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame, and he joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, guys.
That is Matt Verderame from SI. We're going to start next hour with some Chiefs football here on 580 Sports Talk.
Neighbors being
hour of 580 Sports Talk just getting started here on this Monday, May 15th edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. We're here with you until 6 o'clock this afternoon. Is 6 o'clock the afternoon or the evening?
That's the evening.
Yeah, I would say so. We got Royals baseball tonight. Pre-game at 8. First pitch at 8:40. So we're done right at 6 and have a couple of hours of our good pal Dave Ramsey before you get to Royals baseball this evening. Late starts each of the next 2 nights, in fact, for the Kansas City Royals. If you missed anything from our first hour today, including a really good conversation, I thought, today with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated, you can head to our website. That's 580wibw.com. Hover over the podcasts page right in the center of the homepage, podcast tab. And then when a menu pops up, you'll see 580 Sports Talk. Click on that, and that's where you'll find the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show every single day that we are on the air. You can also head to our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Go to our live stream, and you can just rewind it. You can just click and go back to any point in the show up until this point, or go check our back catalog of all of our previous shows as well. That is all online, either at 580wibw.com or at our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Speaking of all the streamed shows we've done, which started at the beginning of November, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, end of October, beginning of November.
You know what tomorrow is?
Tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of the new 580 Sports Talk.
That's right.
Which I guess hasn't been the new 580 Sports Talk for some time. But yeah, the 1-year anniversary of the start of the new afternoons on WIBW with Mike Dupp and the two of us from 3 to 6.
We'll do something fun to celebrate that tomorrow.
Yes.
We'll give something away. We'll have some fun. That's coming up tomorrow. But we've still got 2 more hours to go on today's show. That includes a little Chiefs talk here in just a moment. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. And Ernest Udeh, who you have heard Dan and I talk about over the past year, big fans of his game in his freshman year at KU. Well, he's transferring. Didn't feel great about the Hunter Dickinson commitment. So he is out. And he is reportedly taking a visit to Kansas State. We'll talk about that and what that could mean coming up in just a little bit. But first, the Kansas City Chiefs. Also your texts, by the way, 785-272-9429, and your comments on the YouTube live stream. I was wondering this today. Now that the draft is over, now that the Chiefs have made most, if not all, of their meaningful free agent signings, have a hard time seeing them going out and adding another dude who's in his early to mid-30s, even on a vet minimum deal. Feels like they've kind of locked down the roster at this point. Who are the guys who are veterans? So we're not talking, the UDFAs. They will factor into this equation. But who are the veterans, the guys that have been around, who might be on the roster bubble when we get to training camp this year? I think there's always a few that are nailed on. Travis Kelce's not going anywhere. Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere. I would imagine some of these wide receivers they've brought in probably are not going to end up going anywhere. MVS isn't going to get cut this year, as an example of that. Jerick McKinnon's back. They're not going to cut him. They're not going to cut Pacheco. Those are the obvious ones, those starting offensive line. But across the roster, are there any names right away that jump out as, well, dang, after the draft, maybe this guy isn't safe, or after free agency, maybe this receiver or this tight end or somebody else might not be safe? The couple that come to mind immediately for me, 3 different areas. Number 1, CBS Sports, mostly draft writer, but NFL writer Chris Trapasso, who's been on the show before, he suggested this past week that one guy who might be in a little roster danger is Mike Dana, the defensive end. Said, hey, look, they spent a first-round pick to get Felix Anudike-Uzomah. They double-dipped on the edge later on to go get B.J. Thompson. They've already got a couple of veterans there on the edge, or just guys who've been around. Amenahu is a real veteran. They bring him in. They gave him a 2-year contract. Karlaftis had a very good regular season last year. 6 sacks, started all 17 games as a rookie. You would assume he will take another step forward. Do you let Mike Dana go? Honestly, I would say it is more likely that you would trade Mike Dana than it would be that you would cut him, because he's a nice backup player. I don't think he's a starting edge rusher, but he's a nice backup edge rusher. I think you could get 6th or 7th round pick, or at least a conditional pick for him. I don't think you would cut him. That doesn't make much sense. But also, I don't think you would move on from him. I think you want that depth. I think Felix is a bit of a project just in the sense that he's so young and needs to fill out a little bit more, but he's going to play. I think BJ Thompson is he's a lottery ticket with some traits that you really like. I think Mike Dana's going to play a bunch of snaps this year. I would be very surprised if he was on the chopping block.
Yeah, I guess BJ Thompson is kind of the question mark at defensive end. How much do they like him? What do they think they can generate from him right away? If he's a day one rotational piece, well, then you're at 4, or at 5, and maybe that's too many to carry. And then you do look to move on from one, and Dana would be more realistically somebody that you would look to trade, because obviously the rookie Felix isn't going anywhere, and Karlaftis isn't going anywhere, and you just signed a Menahu, and he's not going anywhere, and you just drafted BJ Thompson. So does Thompson make that rotation and Dana's the odd man out, or is BJ Thompson more of your 5th guy who is inactive a lot of weeks, who really is a project? I guess that is the question there. If you view BJ Thompson as a project, then Dana probably stays on the roster. If Thompson is a contributor, if you think you can get from him what the Chiefs got from Dana last year, which, to be clear, in 13 games was 5 sacks.
He had a good year.
Yeah, that's not nothing from your 3rd or your 4th defensive end, depending on how you viewed. He was probably DE4 last year.
Mm-hmm.
He'd probably be DE4 again this year. Can you get 5 sacks, 8 solo tackles, couple of forced fumbles? He's forced 4 fumbles in the last 2 years. He seems to have a knack for that.
Yeah.
Can you get that right away from BJ Thompson? If you can, then yeah, maybe that is something you consider. If not, then you probably think Thompson is either a practice squad guy or that 5th defensive end that's inactive on game day, like Malik Herring was for a good chunk of the 2022 season. But I would be very surprised to move on from Mike Dana. Very surprised. I think that he was a player who seemed to get better as the year went on. He had the 5 sacks. He had 2 in the final week of the year against the Raiders. He had 2 against the Chargers. 1 against the Broncos. All of his sacks were on the road against divisional foes. It's the value to a player who has that kind of experience and who seems to be an improving player as he goes along in the league. That wouldn't be somebody I would be in a hurry to remove from the roster.
Mm-hmm.
But
agreed.
This is also his 4th year. And what happens after 4 years? Your rookie contract's up.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to believe Thompson's the project, and Dana's a guy that you maybe after this year you pat on the back, you say thank you for your service, and BJ Thompson gets set to move into that DE4 role, or maybe a bigger one if he's up for it. But I don't think that's immediate. It doesn't feel like that's going to be immediate.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And to be honest with you, I mean, I'm looking at the Chiefs roster contract table right now. Of all the players they have drafted that are currently on the roster, nobody is making less money than Mike Dana. Like he's somehow making less than Jalen Watson and Isaiah Pacheco, both of whom were 7th round picks when he was a 5th rounder longer ago. But he is the lowest paid on a per year basis of any of the drafted players that the Chiefs had, not including free agents and obviously not including the undrafted guys they've signed over the last couple of years. That's nothing for that kind of production. If you can get 4 to 6 sacks out of him and he's making less than $1 million this year, yeah, why wouldn't you keep him? I mean, yeah, do you really badly need that $2.7 million against the cap? Not really at this point. Things are pretty much nailed on. Hell, you could probably just restructure, save $1 million, keep him, and not have to move him at all. So I was surprised to see that pop up from CBS Sports. I think Dana's going to have a role on this team. I think there might be games where he plays more than Felix does, depending on what the matchup is, because Dana can play the run pretty well, too. I think he's a nice player. The other one that has come up a few times, and again, this is not a cut candidate. This is a trade candidate. What do you do with L'Jarius Sneed? I mean, is he a legitimate trade candidate because this is another guy whose contract is up at the end of this year. And I think when you talk about production, you say, no, he's an extension candidate. And I would not be opposed to extending L'Jarius Sneed, by the way. He is probably the best defensive back blitzer in the entire NFL. He has gotten better in coverage over time. He's got good athleticism. He's a really nice player, and he has been almost a perfect fit for this Spags defense on the back end of what he likes to do with these creative, versatile defensive backs. But we also know the Chiefs are better than anything when it comes to college scouting at finding value pieces on day 3 of the draft who can start and contribute in the secondary. They do it year after year after year. They find these guys. They just drafted a guy this year in Shamari Connor who is essentially the same player, like skill set wise, as L'Jarius Sneed. He's got corner coverage experience. He's got safety experience. He's done a ton on special teams so far. Was that drafted to be the replacement next year for Sneed? Or was he drafted thinking that he's good enough he can go right now? And we also know, too, the Chiefs are not afraid to move on from guys as they get into the last year of their rookie contracts who have been contributors. Sneed is a better player than Rashad Fenton, but Fenton had been a useful piece on the back end of that defense for 3 years. We'll move on. 6th-round pick, yeah, that's fine. That ended up being fodder for moving up in one of the trades this year when they moved up 3 rounds in a row. I would be surprised, but not really shocked if they wanted to move on from Sneed. That being said, I do think it's more likely he gets extended than he gets traded.
There's a certain amount of logic, especially if you believe that Shamari Connor is capable of that kind of role in your defense. And if you believe in the depth you've assembled at cornerback with McDuffie and Williams and Watson as your top 3 guys, there's a certain amount of sense you can make to say, we are going to trade L'Jarius Sneed a year early, the year before his contract expires. We're going to get something for him because he is not in our plans to extend. So you get something for the player, you plug in someone who's younger and cheaper, and you keep moving. This is not unprecedented. The Patriots and Bill Belichick have that saying about you'd rather trade a player a year too early than lose them a year too late.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain amount of sense you can make. The problem is L'Jarius Sneed to me is one of those players who's too good to do this with.
Okay.
Because if you do trade, let's imagine this is within the realm of possibility, that this is something that Brett Veach has been considering, that maybe they've taken some calls, that if it's not in the works to extend L'Jarius Sneed, that they just as soon trade him now and not go into the 2023 season with him on the roster. You would have a lot of guys in that locker room looking around and saying, so are we trying to win this year or what? Because that's not a move. That's a player that's too good to do this with, because that's the kind of player you win with L'Jarius Sneed. Mm-hmm. He contributes to winning in a way. Like, I'm not saying that Mike Dana didn't have his moments and what isn't a helpful player, but he's not contributing to winning in the way that L'Jarius Sneed is. Mm-hmm. L'Jarius Sneed is a guy that if you're playing against the Chiefs, you have to account for him. You have to find him. You have to make sure he doesn't make a game-changing, game-altering play, as he's done many times in his Chiefs career. That's a player that's too good to do this with, because if he's removed from your roster, then you're going to have guys like Chris Jones and guys like your veteran guys, your Travis Kelce's, who I think would not be happy because we're trying to pile up the rings and be a dynasty in Kansas City, and we've just won a ring. We want to run it back. They failed in their attempt to defend their Super Bowl championship the last time. They want to do that again, because what did Travis Kelce say to the KU basketball team? It's great to win once, even better to win 2. What about winning 3? What about winning 2 in a row? When you do that, you are certified for all time. The teams who have repeated as champions, everybody knows those off the top of their head. Like, those are teams that come to you right away. Those are legendary all-time teams. And the Chiefs missed a chance to do something like that the last time they were the defending champions. And now you want them to go in to a year where they've got a chance to do it again and not have a guy who's as important and has been as important to their defense as L'Jarius Sneed, that's the kind of thing that you can make sense in the front office, but now you got to go and you got to make it make sense to the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a hell of a lot harder to do in that case. So I get, and I'm receptive to the argument for doing something like that, but remember, this isn't Madden. You're dealing with real people in that locker room, and you got to go down and look those guys in the eye and say, hey, one of the most valuable nickel defensive backs in the league, one of our best blitzers, one of our biggest impact defensive players, something of a leader on that group, had to do it. And you know what? Maybe there's enough buy-in because there was enough buy-in for years with the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. They could do stuff like this, and their culture was that strong. Maybe the culture is that solid in Kansas City that you can make it work. You can go in, you could sell it to Chris Jones. You could sell it to Travis Kelce. You could sell it to Patrick Mahomes. This is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have my doubts.
You need to make it work. You need to win if you do that. Because that's why it worked for the Patriots. If they had won one and then, enacted the Patriot way and it never happened again, you'd say, all right, dude, this is a joke. And then it doesn't work. Those cultural things work because you win. For the Chiefs, if you moved on from a guy like Sneed, you said, yeah, we're going to take the future fourth round, future draft pick instead. We're going to save the money. Connor is the new guy. And you've got a bunch of dudes saying, I don't know about this, Brett. If you go out and you win the next year, okay, well, it works. Like, that's hard. That's tough, but it works. If you go out and all of a sudden your secondary is not very good, if suddenly you've got a big gaping hole there because Connor's a young player and he's more of a special teamer than he is a hybrid defensive back, and all of a sudden that becomes a weakness for your team that is out playing for somebody else, then it looks a little bit funny. And you say, hey, we could have been better, but you made this move, and now we are less trusting and less successful because of it. So it's a tough balance. And again, I think it's more likely he gets extended than it is that he gets traded at this point. Any names for you that really stand out?
Honestly, depending on how many tight ends they keep, maybe Blake Bell's on the chopping block, but I know they really like him. I also know he's getting up there in years and was hardly on the roster last year.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the position they look to get younger, or they carry an extra wide receiver, or they carry an extra running back. Want to keep like Michael P. Ryan or Jerry and Ely or somebody like that around, or Justin Ross as a wide receiver 6. I wonder about Lucas Niang.
I had that one too.
I wonder about Lucas Niang, if he's a guy that now that Donovan Smith is in the fold, if the Chiefs feel like, all right, we got our 3 tackles and the path to playing time for Lucas Niang is narrowing, and we've got our true swing tackle is Joe Thuney, and Darian Kennard got his redshirt year last year, and we're just going to cut bait on Lucas Niang. It's not working. It's not working out, which would be a wild change from our speculation throughout the spring that maybe the Chiefs really like Lucas Niang.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe they don't. But that would be one where, again, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other between him and Kennard on the roster, it feels like. It doesn't feel like there's anybody from this roster who was impactful last year whose roster spot is really on the chopping block. I don't think that's the case. I think all the guys that they have brought back that were their contributors from last year stand to be contributors again, barring injury.
The Niang note, I did have that one as well. I think it is possible. I mean, how many? You only get so many spots, right? You're taking 8 or 9 offensive linemen into the year, depending on how the other positions shake out. Right now, you've got Taylor, you've got Smith, Humphrey, Thuney, and Donovan Smith. Those are your 5. You've got Wanye Morris. That's your 6th. You've got to have some guys on the interior, because right now you only have 2 guards with no backups. So you've got to keep guys on the interior who can back up there.
You have Nick Allegretti.
Nick Allegretti is still around as an example of that. You've got to be able to have guys who can back up and be there. Austin Reiter is still on the roster. Maybe he's your backup center. At some point, it just becomes a numbers game. Do you keep a 4th tackle over a 3rd guard, for example, and just say, hey, Austin Reiter, if Trey Smith gets hurt, hope he can play guard. Do you do that, or do you say, hey, Lucas, thanks, but we're gonna move on? I think the numbers game might be the reason why Niang. Now, if he has a great camp, that's going to make things more difficult. If he has the same camp he's had for the last 2 off seasons, it might not be such a difficult decision. To Blake Bell's point, I know I've been trying to manifest this for a couple of years now. I still think the best way to get him on the field and to not have to use an extra roster spot going out and finding a fullback is to essentially make Blake Bell an H-back, and is to move him from tight end into more of a backfield role. He's not going to be on the field a ton. I mean, what were Michael Burton's snap counts last year? I mean, he wasn't on the field a ton.
Wasn't a lot.
Mostly on 4th and short, right? Would Blake Bell be willing to take that role so he still has a role on the team? Because I know the Chiefs wanted to do that 4 tight end package, but guys were hurt. Like, Fortson was hurt for a lot of the year. Bell was hurt for a lot of the year. They ended up not being able to do that whatsoever. Burton last year, snap counts, he played a grand total of 71 offensive snaps. That was 6% of the snaps for the year, plus he played a bunch of special team snaps. I mean, can Blake Bell do that? Can he do what you want out of your fullbacks? I think the answer is yes. I think he would be able to do that. I mean, he's got backfield experience. He's already been, he and Kelsey and Noah Gray even once have been the direct snap guy on 3rd and 4th and short. I see no reason why he doesn't have the skill set or the size to do that unless he just says, hey, I'm old and I don't want to do that at this point. But I think you can save a roster spot essentially by moving Bell to more of an H-back as opposed to a tight end. The only other one, and we've brought this up before, and I know his name is going to come up plenty more during the course of the offseason, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was the first one in the building, and Brett Veach talked all about him at his first minicamp press conference 2 weeks ago. I understand that. They did sign your guy, Deneric Price, is it? Or is it Prince?
Prince.
Deneric Prince
Yep.
From Tulsa. One of the fastest players in the country coming out of college. What do the Chiefs love? Speed. They love speed everywhere. Receivers, you got to be able to separate. Also speed. Tight ends. What was Noah Gray's big thing? Well, he's not very big, so he's not much of a blocker. He's got good footwork, and he's fast for a tight end. Kelsey, we know what he's like in the open field, and frankly, without a whole lot of open space. The Chiefs like to have speed and athletes out there. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been a disappointment from an athletic perspective in his NFL career. He hasn't had that open space, put me on any part of the line of scrimmage and I can make plays kind of impact. I don't know that Prince can catch the ball. I genuinely have no idea. But if you're left between 2 guys who can't catch the ball, one is making almost $0 as an undrafted free agent, and he's faster, versus a guy who's making a lot more than effectively $0 and isn't very fast and also can't catch the ball, you could see an argument that maybe you go with the UDFA there. I don't know that they want to get rid of Clyde. I don't know if anyone would be willing to trade for him, but I do think that's going to be something to watch. Pacheco's number 1. McKinnon, he's not even like RB2 or RB3. He just has his own role. He has his own job. I think that true backup running back job is really going to be up in the air between Prince and Edwards-Helaire. If Clyde comes in and he's maybe, I don't know, slimmed down a little bit, he does get a little bit of that speed back that we saw at LSU. Maybe he comes in, has a really good year, hits free agency, gets paid next season. I think there's a very clear option, though, in Prince, who's also bigger. He's 6 foot. He's got that kind of speed. I think that is going to be a legit camp battle this year, and I think it's not impossible that Edwards-Helaire is on the way out. We'll take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. If you have any thoughts on the Chiefs roster bubble, hit us up either on YouTube in the comment section. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. Or you can let us know on the text line, 785-272-9429. When we come back on the other side of this break, it'll be What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. Time to start a new week of What is Wrong with You here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got two new stories to start off what should be another fun week here on the show. And of course, What is Wrong with You is, as always, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field here in Topeka. Dan, why don't you lead us off with your What is Wrong with You for today?
Gladly. We're going to Salt Lake City, specifically the Salt Lake City International Airport, where a woman was going through TSA, and during a routine screening, members of the airport division of the SLCPD Police Department found a suspicious item. It was a big old jar of peanut butter. Now, peanut butter is considered a liquid by TSA. I didn't know this. So you can only get 3.4 ounces of peanut butter or less through TSA.
Like a little ketchup packet of peanut butter.
Yeah, a small little thing. I don't know if Jif or Skippy make travel size peanut butter.
We're going to find out.
Like a little travel size fit right in your toiletry bag of peanut butter.
You can get Jif to go. How big are these? I imagine they're less than 3.4 ounces, but yes, you can get Jif Creamy to go. It looks like what you'd get at a continental breakfast.
The one that choosy mothers choose.
Yeah.
Are you a Jif guy or a Skippy guy?
I'm a Skippy guy. We always had Skippy growing up.
Team Jif over here.
I think for now, though, we are a store brand family.
Hey,
currently.
Listen. The store brand is A-okay by me too, and also creamy and not crunchy. Right?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
My wife would disagree. We have two different peanut butters.
Crunchy is just insane to me. Just eat some peanuts. Also,
yes, these are. You get an 8 count, 1.5 ounces each. You can take 2 of these.
How about that? Anyway, these were not Jif to go. These were 40-ounce jars of peanut butter. Also, rather than creamy or crunchy, these were methy jars of peanut butter. There was a crystallized substance that could be seen in the first jar of peanut butter that was seized. And during the search, officers said they found 2 jars of peanut butter with over half a pound of crystal meth concealed inside the jars. 61-year-old Melissa Hawking was arrested and booked into the SLC Metro Jail on one charge of distributing a controlled substance. The other person who was initially detained was released. They tried to get meth through the airport in some jars of peanut butter, is what happened.
I feel like by 61, you should probably feel like, you know what? I got better things to do than smuggling meth.
So they had the store brand. They had Winco Foods.
Oh, Winco.
Creamy peanut butter. They had like a bunch of crackers, and looks like they had like a knife and some apples. Like they were bringing like a whole snack through. I don't know how they thought the knife was going to fly.
I don't know.
But
I think it's a plastic knife.
Yeah.
I think that looks like a plastic knife.
Yeah, you might be right. But no, half a pound of meth in the peanut butter.
That's pretty funny. Oh, man. Salt Lake City Airport's not all that big.
No.
It's kind of old school, too. It's not a lot of new amenities at the Salt Lake City Airport. Apparently, though, they've got a pretty good TSA office. My What is Wrong with You for today involves a wanted Las Vegas woman who was arrested after commenting under a Facebook post about the case she was wanted for. So we meet 36-year-old Marion Reyes, who has 7 DUI arrests. Well, she was wanted for allegedly cutting off her ankle monitor and was taken back into custody recently after she commented on a Facebook post about how she was wanted for cutting off her ankle monitor. She turned herself into the Las Vegas Metro Police Department on Friday, the day after the Bureau asked the public for help in locating her and purported that she had cut off her ankle monitor. She replied to this Facebook post asking for help, saying, quote, "I never cut it off!" 3 exclamation points. An officer cut it off when I turned myself in. They continued to release me.
She wanted to set the record straight.
Yeah. I didn't screw up. They did. And now I'm free. The Traffic Bureau then responded, then why not turn yourself in now? Let's get this sorted out. So Reyes did. She showed up, talked to someone on Thursday night, then surrendered on Friday, and then she spent 2 days in jail for missing a court date for her felony DUI program. As part of the plea deal reached after she was arrested for an October DUI, her 7th in a 15-year period.
That's too many DUIs.
Her last 3 DUI charges were reduced to 1, and she was permitted to attend a treatment program. If she is charged with DUI again, she will be sent to prison. Okay, this is the nicest court system of all time. Well, let's count it as 1. Dude, she could kill someone, including herself.
7 DUIs in 15 years. There's a larger set of problems there. But no, it is very funny. She logged on to the Facebook, and they were talking about her. She says, listen, I can't let them drag my name through the mud like this.
I will set the record straight.
Let me straighten this out. Let me make a few things clear for the audience.
Who you got for today?
I got to go with the meth peanut butter.
Meth peanut butter. That's a great phrase.
Peanut butter and meth.
I've been thinking for days about our Friday winner from last week, the meth salad.
The guy who put the meth in the salad?
We've evolved from every month having a winner that's about food to every month or every week now having a story that's about food and meth at the same time, which I don't know if that's evolving or devolving. Yeah, I'm with you. You know you can't bring that through. Like, it's going to get flagged. Even if it wasn't qualified as a liquid, they would flag that because it's so big and dense.
Yes. I mean, just a regular old store jar of peanut butter through the TSA. Everybody knows you can't do that.
She had a whole picnic in there.
She really did.
Would you put peanut butter on saltines?
I mean, I'm sure it tastes fine, but that's not like a go-to.
No, I wouldn't do that. My wife likes peanut butter and apples a lot. She has that as a snack all the time. Saltines, though, I don't know. I would pick a different cracker. That is our winner, the meth peanut butter, today in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Let's get to a break. On the other side of this timeout, though, Ernest Udeh leaving Kansas and showing interest in Kansas State basketball. We'll discuss what that might mean coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Back on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. Brendan and Dan here with you. Two big men transferred out of Kansas basketball last week in the wake of Hunter Dickinson transferring in. Hunter Dickinson, one of the best players the portal has ever seen, maybe the best player the portal has ever seen. KU obviously wanted to go get the best player available. They did, but there's obviously a consequence to that, and that is losing some of your own homegrown players. So both Ernest Udeh and Zuby Ejiofor enter the portal in reverse order. It was Ejiofor first and then Udeh. Zuby was efficient rebounding the ball. In fact, had crazy rebounding efficiency numbers in very limited time this past year. I still think he can be a good player. I was not surprised by some of the schools that ended up recruiting him. And today he made his commitment. He is going to St. John's. I think that is a very good fit for him. Not going to have to be super relied on. Gets to play for another great coach. You get to play for Bill Self and Rick Pitino in your career. That's some pretty darn good coaches to learn from.
Yeah, that's genuinely fascinating.
Johnny should be pretty good next year with Pitino and with a lot more new talent. That's a good fit for Zuby. Now Ernest Udeh needs to find a new home. And Ernest Udeh is leaving Kansas and has visits set up now, according to Andrew Slater, who has written for a bunch of places. He's very tuned in to college basketball, 24/7, has covered Duke specifically for a while. He's been all over the place. He tweeted today that Ernest Udeh has a visit coming up at Duke, as well as at TCU and Kansas State. Now, there is a week-long dead period coming up. I believe it's a full week long, starting later this week. Maybe it's 10 days. So there's going to be a brief period of time where nobody can go on campus. But after that, things are going to ratchet back up again as we get toward the end of the month and the end of after, I should say, the NBA Draft Combine, which is also significant for the portal because some guys will say, hey, I didn't get a promise. I didn't have a good combine. I'm going to come back to school, transfer, whatever. But again, Ernest Udeh, Kansas Jayhawk transfer, considering Duke, TCU, and Kansas State. And Dan, from that list, the best fit, if he wants to play, if my goal is, hey, I don't want to sit forever. I want to play. And I'm good enough to play. And defensively, right now, fouls too much, but in terms of skill set, he's good enough to play right now.
Absolutely.
Offense, I think it's fair to say needs some development. Great lob catcher. Doesn't really do much else on offense, but you can teach that. A lot of guys aren't anything more than that early in their career, especially when they play for Bill Self. But the defensive traits, I think, are bordering on truly unique. I mean, the way he played on the perimeter was unbelievable for a 7-footer, or a near 7-footer.
As a freshman,
yeah. Purely on instinct, and it was really fun to watch. The best fit is Kansas State. TCU, I don't know exactly what their big rotation looks like going into next year. I think he would play there.
Well, other than Eddie Lampkin, they didn't really have one.
No, that's true. And now he's obviously gone. Georgetown, right? Went to go play for Cooley?
Yeah, Georgetown.
Duke doesn't really have a true center right now, but they've got like 8 power forwards.
Yeah, they're going to play the Filipowski kid at center, is what I would think.
Stretch him out, yeah.
Yeah, he was their center last year, and they don't play with that back to the basket. Mm-hmm. I mean, so few teams do anymore.
Yeah.
And right now, that's kind of what Udeh is on the offensive end. Like, he's a lob catcher, and he's somebody that, you're 5 feet from the basket or more, he's not going to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how you have to play offensively with him on the floor. At least that was how Kansas had to play. Just, throw him lobs if you're going to involve him in the action.
But if you're looking for if it's just about playing time, I don't think Duke makes a whole lot of sense because, yeah, you would have that unique set of being a true 5. But all those other dudes who are coming back and who they're bringing in a really good recruiting class, they're all better offensive players right away. Like, you're not taking Filipowski off the floor to play more Udeh. Like, again, I think Ernest is going to be a maybe great college basketball player. I thought Filipowski was going to be a first-round pick this year.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he came back to school.
Yeah,
it was NILs that good.
It was very surprising he came back. And, yeah, they do. They got a bunch of guys who kind of fit that mold, stretch 4s who can tall enough to guard the 5.
So the other team that's involved here, Kansas State, they don't have a great option for a full-time big right now.
Right. They may graduate. The other guys who played center for them last year were David Gasson and Naquan Tomlin. Tomlin's a stretch at center. He's kind of probably stretched too thin defensively there.
I would agree.
I think the ideal for Tomlin is to play the 4 exclusively.
Agreed.
I think that is what Kansas State would prefer to do. David Gasson I like. I like him as a rim runner, as a defender. I thought he played good basketball down the stretch. I don't know that he is the defender that Udeh is.
I don't think so.
And
I don't really want Gasson playing 25-plus minutes a game either.
that's the other. He's pretty skinny.
Mhm.
So, that was the thing. They were kind of, K-State was always kind of in between last year where Gasson was like the ideal offensively, but he couldn't really bang. Bebe could bang, but he wasn't really giving you anything on offense, and he couldn't really run. Like, you couldn't run when Iziola was your 5. You couldn't get out. You were slowed down. You were bogged down a little bit offensively with him. But if you need to throw him at Eddie Lampkin for a few minutes or whoever big man was in the game for, you throw him at Cisse for Oklahoma State, like, you could do that.
Yeah.
So they were kind of betwixt and between when it came to their center options last year. Udeh would fit the mold in the sense that he's big enough, physical enough, I think, that he can hold his own in the paint defensively. He can definitely get out and run. He can defend on the perimeter. He's switchable. K-State loved to switch everything. He's extremely switchable as the defender at the 5, more so than a lot of true centers that you see.
Right.
Because that was the way that K-State would get around having Tomlin at the 5. You're switching everything anyway. But Udeh's a switchable defender who can make an impact on the perimeter, and he can get out and run. He can run and gun with, now Tyler Perry and Cam Carter and Naquan Tomlin. Like, he can get up and down the floor with those guys in a way that I think Jerome Tang wants to. It is a good fit. We just don't have any kind of precedent for somebody saying, I'm leaving Kansas and going to play at Kansas State. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the Sunflower Showdown basketball rivalry needs something like this to happen, because it doesn't. The Sunflower Showdown rivalry is elevated by essentially whether or not Kansas State is good. When Kansas State is good, it is an awesome rivalry. When Kansas State is not good, it is still a cool rivalry and it's still meaningful to the people it means something to. But, it doesn't always register. It's not like Duke Carolina, where that's always going to, even when Duke and Carolina weren't ranked last year, it's still, led Sports Center. When got on ESPN. Like, that's not the Sunflower Showdown. Kansas State stands to be pretty good while Jerome Tang is their head coach. And they've elevated that program. But, I like a hot fudge sundae. But I like it even better when you throw some, like, toppings on it. Your little brownie pieces or, crumbled up cookie things, sprinkles, a cherry on top. Ernest Udeh going from Kansas to Kansas State would be the sprinkles on the sundae, wouldn't it? The cherry on the sundae, the icing on the cake, however you want to, whatever analogy you want to use, and would make the 2 meetings between the 2 teams next year even more interesting, even more exciting. And for that reason alone, I got to say that's the outcome I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
Beyond fit, and like, this sounds like I don't care about Ernest Udeh's, like, personal happiness or fit or whatever it is.
I know what you mean.
But I want to see this happen for the sake of, it would make, like, there is always a tension at Bramlage when Kansas comes to town.
Right.
Bramlage, when KU comes to town, feels a little different than Allen Fieldhouse when K-State comes to town, because Kansas fans go into that building thinking they're going to win no matter what. And there's not that tension. The hatred doesn't bubble over in a way that I think it does at Bramlage. But you add Kansas State with Ernest Udeh coming into Allen Fieldhouse, that might bubble things over a little bit at Allen Fieldhouse in a way that I think would be fascinating and I think would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it would be too. I think the fit makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're a KU fan, I wouldn't have any, even if he goes to K-State, like, I wouldn't have any bad blood toward the guy. He wanted to go play, and he didn't want to sit for at least 1 more year playing 10 or fewer minutes a game, and maybe 2. Dickinson could play for 2. I don't think he will, but he could. want to go play. And I think the best chance for him to go play and be a major impact player right away is probably at K-State, then TCU, then a distant third would be Duke. I don't know what he is weighing personally, what his camp is weighing personally. Maybe he cares a whole lot about can you give me some money? Can I make some NIL coin here? And if that's the case, well, then maybe it's Duke and then everybody else. I have no idea. I don't know the guy personally. I have heard, and this isn't a report, just a whisper, things didn't end super amicably between KU and Udeh. Not necessarily like bad blood, but just not great vibes on his way out the door. I don't know what started that.
That would certainly seem to make playing in the Big 12 more appealing.
Certainly. Say, hey, you pushed me out the door after I thought it was my turn to be the guy next year. I'm going to show you that I should have been the guy. And hey, more power to you. This is the business. Like this, you can't have hard feelings on the outside because this is just what it is. KU did the same thing a year ago when they got Kevin McCullough, right? I mean, it was a very similar kind of thing. He said, hey, I want to try something new. KU said, you're the perfect fit for us. Come on in. Texas Tech fans were bitter about it, to say the least.
And the atmosphere at Lubbock was incredible for that trip.
Yeah, and I think you would get something very similar. So I've got no bad blood toward the guy. I think Kansas State would make the most sense.
I think it'd be a great fit for him. I think that certainly there's some offensive potential for him to unlock. But as far as a defensive forward center who is strong enough to play the paint and can run, like the hybrid between Eziola and Gasson that K-State wished they had last year, that's him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Plus, this again reinforces kind of what I mentioned earlier and have said before about the risks you run when you play the transfer portal game. You go and get Hunter Dickinson. Hunter Dickinson right now is better than, on whole, than either Zuby Ejiofor or Ernest Udeh. Honestly, earnestly believe that. I don't think that's a hot take at all. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. But you're losing two guys who are clearly highly thought of as prospects as well. One is going to St. John's, which is one of the fastest rising programs because of who their new head coach is. And the other is getting recruited by a team that's been really good in TCU, team that's coming off a great year in K-State, and oh yeah, Duke. Like that, those are good players, but that's the risk you run when you add to the portal instead of doing as much stuff homegrown. We've got to get to a break. The national and local news is coming up here at the top of the hour. When we come back for the final hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll lead things off with today's headlines. It's all coming up here on 580 WIBW. 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thanks so much for swinging by and spending some of your Monday afternoon with us. We appreciate it as always. You can go find the podcast version of the show at our website, 580wibw.com, if you've missed any of the show today. Of course, we're still taking your thoughts throughout the show on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Or you could hit us up in the YouTube comment section. The name of our YouTube channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. It's very simple. Just head to youtube.com. We're doing it right now. Easiest way to go and find our channel. Once YouTube loads, go to the search bar and just type in Sports on 580. And then once the search loads, we will be the very top result. You can just click subscribe right there on the search page. Head to our channel. You can see all of our content live. It is as it is streaming, plus all of our old shows, our draft stuff from late last month. All of our video content can be found there on YouTube on our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. We've got our headlines coming up here in just a minute. We'll preview Royals versus Padres and that series beginning tonight, coming up a little bit later as well. But let's start right away with our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in this hour. And the first one, we knew this was coming, but Kansas State made it official today that Chris Kleiman has a new contract with Kansas State football that has him tied to the program through the 2030 season. It is an 8-year deal. It begins this year. So they're tearing up the old contract and giving him a new 8-year deal. The average salary is $5.5 million. It will start out at $4.5 million and then will increase yearly, and eventually we'll get to a average over the course of the deal to $5.5 million per year. That is fourth among current Big 12 coaches. And once Texas and Oklahoma leave, it will be second among Big 12 coaches. The only one getting paid more on a per year basis is Mike Gundy. Kleiman obviously has had a ton of success at K-State. 50 games coached as the head Wildcat. Do you know his record in those 50 games?
Not off the top of my head. 35 and 15?
30 and 20.
Okay.
So darn good overall. He's won 60% of his games. 21 and 16 in conference play. This is with a 4-6 year in the COVID year, in which K-State struggled a lot that season. Other than that, 8-win year, 10-win year with a Big 12 championship and a trip to the Sugar Bowl. Phenomenal season for Kansas State, and he is the coach of just the fourth ever Big 12 championship for the Wildcats. We knew this was coming. It was just a matter of when would K-State announce it? Would anything be different between the Pete Thamel report and the news actually breaking? And effectively, it was not. So Chris Kleiman now tied to K-State through the year 2030. I have not seen a buyout number yet, or what the structure of a buyout would be. I can't imagine an SEC program would come calling. I would not be shocked at all if there was a program in the Big Ten that said, we want that guy, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get that guy. So that'll always be a risk. But if you're K-State, you know, if we ever lose Chris Kleiman, it will not be because we did not pay him favorably, that we did not put a staff around him that was also paid well, paid handsomely in some cases. This is a big boy move by K-State. I'm glad they got it done.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on this when the news first broke, when Pete Thamel first reported that this was coming down the pike, that calling it a big boy move is exactly right. This is the kind of thing that you do to make sure your coach is happy, to make sure that his assistants are fairly compensated, to make sure that you keep the program chugging along at the level that it reached last year, and try and reach those same heights as the Big 12 evolves.
Glad they got it done. And now, if you're K-State, everything is recruiting. Every single thing is recruiting, because now you can go and say, hey, you want to spend 4 years here? You want to redshirt, spend 5 years here? I will be here the entire time. You have nothing to worry about. So this is good for K-State. Both coaches now, K-State and KU football, have been paid in the recent past and over the last couple of months of this offseason. Things looking up for Sunflower State College football.
Absolutely. First headline for me today in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll keep it real local for this one. Washburn Athletics has announced the 2023 Hall of Fame class. And it is a great one, and lots of players that people will remember from recent memory. 5 individuals who achieved All-American status in their careers. Now, my apologies if I get a pronunciation wrong or two here, but heading into the Washburn Athletics Hall of Fame in the class of 2023 include a pair of football players. Linebacker Grant Gould, who was a second-team All-American, played from 2002 to 2005, set the career record for solo tackles and assisted tackles, and finished naturally as the all-time leader in tackles at Washburn history. Still has the record for assisted tackles and is 8th in career tackles for loss with 29. Was a first-team All-MIAA selection as a senior, helping the Ichabods to the MIAA championship. Also from football, Brian Folkerts, who started 39 games at right and left tackle from 2008 to 2011, was a second-team All-American selection and played in 28 NFL games and recently became an XFL world champion.
Dang right.
Member of the Arlington Renegades. So Brian Folkerts and Grant Gould going in from Washburn football. From Washburn basketball, Will McNeil, who was a second-team All-American and the most valuable player in the MIAA in 2013, played for the Ichabods from 2008 to 2013, was the first Ichabod to record at least 1,500 points, 500 rebounds, 200 steals, and 200 assists in his career. Was also named all defense in the MIAA as a sophomore and was the most outstanding player of the MIAA tournament as a junior. Laura Kindernecht from the women's basketball program played for the Ichabods from 2009 to 2013. An honorable mention All-American as a senior, was the Central Region Player of the Year, co-MVP of the MIAA, and first team All-MIAA as a senior. Finished in the top 20 in scoring and third all-time, finishing her career with 197 career three-pointers. And the 5th and final inductee into the 2023 Washburn Athletics Hall of Fame class is Jessica Fye, who was a first-team All-American in 2012 in volleyball, played from 2009 to 2012. 3-time All-Region first-team selection, MIAA Player of the Year, Central Region Player of the Year in 2012. So congratulations to all 5 of those outstanding former Ichabods who will comprise the Hall of Fame class of 2023.
What a class. That is 5 deep in that Hall of Fame class for Washburn. How about that? Yeah, Brian Folkerts, darn good. This is his second XFL stint. In fact, he played for St. Louis back in 2020, the first inclination or the first iteration, thank you, of the new XFL. Stuck around, and 2 Ichabods in that league this year. So cool for Brian. Won a championship this weekend, and cool for that entire class for the Washburn Hall of Fame. Do we know? Yes, we do. October 7th is when they will be enshrined officially in the Washburn Hall of Fame with a brunch prior to the Ichabods game against Missouri Western in football on Saturday, October 7th.
Yeah, Hall of Fame Day. They'll also honor the class at halftime of the football game at Jaeger, I would expect, just as they have in the past.
Very, very cool. That is awesome for them. Next headline for me today on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We already knew that something like this was coming, but the NFL has made the details very clear now. Peacock, NBC's streaming service, will get exclusively an NFL playoff game coming up this season, the 2023 year. There will be, for the first time ever, a streaming-only NFL playoff game. According to the Wall Street Journal, Peacock, NBC Universal, is paying $110 million for one football game. It will be streamed at either 7:15 or 7:30 on January 13th, which I believe is a Saturday.
Yes, this will be the Saturday primetime game on what has become Super Wild Card Weekend, where you get the 2 on Saturday, 3 Sunday, and the Monday night.
And then the Monday night game for ESPN, correct. So a lot of people thought this was going to be the Saturday afternoon game, a.k.a. what was once upon a time the Houston Texans Invitational. If Houston's in the playoffs, you know they're playing at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. This is instead going to be primetime Saturday. You might remember last year's primetime Saturday game featured the Jags coming back against the Chargers in that absolutely wild opening round game. In a quote from Hans Schroeder, NFL Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the NFL Media, said, quote, expanding the digital distribution of NFL content while maintaining wide reach for our games continues to be a key priority for the league, and bringing the excitement of an NFL playoff game exclusively to Peacock's streaming platform is the next step in that strategy. So a couple of things to note here. This will still be televised on regular terrestrial television in the home markets of the teams that are playing.
Right. So if the Chiefs end up in this game playing on Wild Card Weekend, entirely possible. There's only one bye anymore, after all. You would still, if you lived in the Kansas City television market, be able to watch the game on, is it KSHB? Is the NBC
KSHB,
affiliate? Yeah. So you'd be able to watch it on KSHB. If you have cable, if you have an antenna, whatever it is, you're still going to be able to watch your team, your home team, play in that game.
That's a good thing. Unfortunately for Topeka, that means you gotta cross the Douglas County line. You gotta head east a little bit. You gotta go to a restaurant or a friend's or a family member's house over in Douglas County or further east if you want to end up watching that game.
Or you pay the $5 for Peacock.
Or you pay for Peacock. Yeah, that's an example. That's the other option you can go with. We have Peacock right now. We just added it. We rotate through our streaming services. Abby has some shows she wanted to watch. Finally got to rewatch that 70s show again. Wrestling on there as well. $5 a month, not too bad.
So yeah, that's the base price for it. And I don't mean to turn this into an advertisement for it. I'm not going to sit here and compare the streaming services, but I think for like depth of catalog, especially if you really like Premier League soccer, or if you really like professional wrestling, you definitely
have to have it. Yeah.
You gotta have Peacock because you get the WWE network. It's got the NBC primetime catalog, got a lot of old stuff. There's some movies. There have been some exclusives that I think have actually been pretty good. Like they put out Poker Face earlier this year, and my wife and I ripped through that. Really enjoyed watching that as a weekly TV series with Natasha Lyonne from Orange is the New Black. It was really good. For me, worth the $5. Also, they've got some exclusive. They've done some, like they had an exclusive Notre Dame football game during last season, and will again this year. They're going to have a lot of Big Ten stuff. Big Ten athletics are going to be heavy on Peacock. When the Olympics roll around every other year, when it's an Olympic year, tons of programming available. You can basically watch everything live on Peacock, and everything taped and all of that good stuff. But I understand that there is still that feeling of if you're a cable subscriber, I'm paying for all this TV. Why I got to pay for more TV for one game? Why do I got to shell out for one game? Why do I got to download a new app, figure out how to use a new product for one game? And the NFL's response to that is, we don't care, because if it means something to you, this is true for everything, right? If it's important to you, you make the effort.
Right.
If it's important to you, like ESPN Plus, we can complain about that and rent all the garments we want, but if it's important to you to be able to watch every K-State game, you pay the $5 for ESPN Plus. And if that football game in January is important to you, if you want to watch all of the playoffs, if that playoff football game is important to you, you're going to give NBC Universal $5 American dollars so you can get that up on your Roku or on your laptop or your Fire Stick or whatever it is and watch that game. And the NFL knows that even if you don't, it's not going to turn you away from their product altogether. You're going to watch all the other ones.
One other way you can watch it, if you subscribe to NFL Plus, you can also watch it that way, which is, I think, $80 for the year, which is, I don't know what that is per month, but whatever 80 divided by 12 is. So that's another way you can watch it. So you can watch it multiple ways. You might already be a super NFL film nerd and you already have NFL Plus. So, I don't have to pay the extra $5. That works out for you. I'm going to propose something that will make people mad at me. You want people to subscribe? You want people to watch this game? You want to get those big, juicy streaming numbers? You know who you got to put on this game. It's the Chiefs.
Yeah.
You got to put Patrick Mahomes on this game. And I know you're going to be mad at me, and I get that, because nobody in Topeka wants to, oh, my God, I already have ESPN Plus because I got to watch the basketball and the football for the Big 12. Got all the, got Netflix, got Hulu, got Max, whatever else. I don't want to do another one. Brendan, shut up. If the NFL wants, and I'm sure NBC and the NFL, they've been working together for so long. They've got, a symbiotic relationship here.
Mm-hmm.
They say, hey, we want to make sure people are actually watching this, so our $110 million and that advertising budget pays off. Okay, we'll give you Mahomes. That's what you got to do.
I'll tell you what it ain't going to be. It ain't going to be Jaguars-Dolphins.
Nope. I think leagues used to do that, like stream only or whatever. Even Notre Dame, like Notre Dame versus
Toledo.
Toledo that's right.
was the Peacock exclusive. Yeah.
And maybe that still will be because every Notre Dame home game is on NBC anyway, so they're still reaping the benefits.
And we know they don't play anybody good.
Well, that's true. Jerry Dworzinski moment on the other side of the glass. Mom, ever since I was a kid, Notre Dame doesn't play anybody. My dad hates Notre Dame. Anyway, beside the point. For this game, they're going to put real teams on there because they want you to subscribe. They want to drive eyeballs to that. They want proof that this idea works. And that's not going to happen if you get
Falcons Seahawks.
Yeah. Frankly, that's true. The diehards will watch it, but the casual fans will say, one will win and I'll see him next week.
But if you are a casual NFL fan, you like to watch Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And you might be willing to pay $5 to watch Patrick Mahomes. And, cool. This has all 20 seasons of Law & Order. I can watch all the Jordan Peele horror movies on here. Hey, all right.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't cancel before this thing auto renews next month. And then they've got you.
Or what they're really banking on, not that you're thinking, I'm going to cancel this or I'm going to keep it. You're just going to forget. That's true. It's like gift cards. That's why companies love gift cards, because enough people just forget they have them. A company already got their $20. We're good. We're fine. You use it. You don't use it. Doesn't matter to us. We got paid.
Yeah.
That's the streaming platform too.
Big part of their business model. Yeah. This is going to make people mad. Incandescently mad. There are going to be some think pieces. There's going to be some rage. But again, if it is important to you, you will pay for it. It's like a subscription to the newspaper or a magazine or a subscription to somebody's writing or a subscription to some streaming service because they got a TV show you want to watch or a series that you really love. If it's important to you, you pay for it because at the end of the day, it's $5. And I know it adds up after a while, and it adds up if you're paying for a bunch of different streaming services. But if you can look at your budget and say, all right, I guess I'll skip Starbucks on Tuesday morning and pay for Peacock for the month. Like the NFL is banking on it being important enough to you, and Peacock is doing it too. They're making a 9-figure bet that you will decide that come January, that's going to be something you want to pay for.
And they're right. They've already won that bet.
Yeah, they are mostly right. Speaking of the postseason, but active postseasons, let's get into our playoff roundup. It is the most popular segment within a segment that we do during the late spring, early summer months here on 580 Sports Talk. We take a look at what is happening in the NBA and NHL playoffs. We are almost set for the conference finals in both sports. We are all set in the conference finals in the NBA. And if these look familiar, these matchups to you, then they should, because the NBA has replicated the bubble conference finals after the Boston Celtics blew out the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 7 of their Eastern Conference semifinal yesterday. We have the Celtics and the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. That will begin on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Friday night, the Los Angeles Lakers closed out the Golden State Warriors. So it will be the Nuggets and the Lakers in the West with Game 1 of that series on Tuesday night. Before we get into any of that, Philadelphia 76ers. I was told that was the MVP. I was told they had the MVP of the league on their team. I was told that we had to give him the MVP this year because the other guy had never won a ring. The better player, he didn't have a ring. We can't give him 3 in a row. Also, if you don't give it to Joel Embiid this year, you might be a little racist. Just asking questions, right, Kendrick Perkins? We had to give it to him this year. We had to give him the MVP. Joel Embiid has not played in a conference finals in his NBA career. Nikola Jokic is about to play in his second. That's a fact. Joel Embiid was 5 for 18 from the field yesterday in a Game 7. That's a fact. Joel Embiid took the podium after the game and said, I can't do it by myself. Me and James Harden can't do it by yourself. Boy, you and James Harden can't do it at all. It doesn't matter who your teammates are.
That quote was taken wildly out of context. The part of that, look, I don't really care because I don't really like this. I like Joel. I don't really like the Sixers, though, and I really don't like Boston. By far, the Nuggets are the most likable team left. But, well, no, I like Jimmy Butler. But the rest of that team's not really likable. Like, I don't like Tyler Hero. Why would I like Tyler Hero?
Well, he's not playing at all.
Well, you still show his mug all the time.
Duncan Robinson.
Yeah. The Nuggets are likable, though. They're a very likable team. Most likable team left. I can understand why someone would not like the Miami Heat. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Like, Embiid's whole comment was more so like, it doesn't sound great. And the clip that went viral, because that's what always happens, it sounded really bad. But he did say, look, it wasn't just us. It will, everybody has to get better. We all have to improve together. It can't just be us. Everybody's got to be a part of this. It wasn't quite as bad as it originally sounded. Now, that being said, the part I'm more upset about is that Joel Embiid copied part of the Giannis quote from 2 weeks ago about
there's no failure in sports. It's only a step to success.
I think fans are probably, and media members are probably too quick to sometimes say, like, this guy is a bad player. No, they're not. They're a great player because they've gotten to the highest level. They are the 1% of the 1% who have gotten to this level. But you can say they are bad relative to their peers, relative to the rest of the 1% of the 1%. Just like you can say, yes, Giannis, it was incredible and it was a success in a lot of ways to get to the playoffs. That is success. It is hard to win that many games. It is hard to get to the playoffs. It is very hard to win in the playoffs. That is totally fair. But that quote is going to drive me up a damn wall forever. Because you said, well, there is no failure. It's all success. It's all steps to success. It's not failure. You were the best team in the NBA, and you got embarrassed.
You lost in 5 games to the 8th seed.
To a team that is one all-star and a bunch of dudes who are going to go, who, like, are one bad week away from the Guangdong Tigers, okay? Like, Duncan Robinson has a bad month. Like, bye. See ya. Especially before he got that big contract. Tyler Hero might be like that in a couple of years. Bam Adebayo, every single game I see him, I go back and forth between, is he an all-star or is he just tall? Like, I don't actually know.
He's not even tall. He's 6'8".
I don't even know that he's good. Like, I really do not know that he's a good player.
That 6'8" is very tall. I wish I were 6'8". But, like,
relative
to centers,
like, you failed. And that is okay. It is okay to admit failure. Like, for the Heat, this season is an unquestioned success. They were in the play-in tournament. They're getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. If they get swept by Boston, it is still a success of a season. Milwaukee failed because they were the best team in the NBA, and they got dog-walked in the first round. For the Sixers, this year is a failure because you had multiple all-stars. You hitched your wagon to Glenn Doc Rivers, and that needed to pay off, and it didn't. Your guy won the MVP, and that was a great moment for him. And you didn't get past the second round again. That is a failure, and that's okay. It is hard. Only one team gets to win. There are 30 in the league. One gets to win it all. It's okay to not get to your ultimate goal, but this whole, like, it's just a step to success. This might be it, dude. James Harden might be gone. There's no guarantee anyone's going to come play for Doc Rivers. You're paying Tobias Harris like $100 million. There's no guarantee you're going to get to this spot again. That's what bothers me is that now, and the same sports writers who have their heads so far up there, you know what's. And they're like, oh, what a bold quote by Giannis. This is so thoughtful. No, he's making a big old fat excuse because he failed. He choked. And now there's no failure.
Now, listen. I think you're going a little too far in your criticism with Giannis here. I think Giannis believes what he says because given what he came from and what he has accomplished, it is silly to assume that losing one series would be something that he would perceive as failure. He's got a different perspective on that than anybody else could have. It is his perspective from his lived experience. And frankly, it's a perspective that, like, at younger levels of sports, we could probably use a little bit more of.
That's fair.
I understand why people have taken that and pointed out, hey, there's a lot of wisdom here. Like, there's an understanding of what it is that Giannis is trying to say. But yes, if you're jumping on that quote and saying, well, hey, Giannis said this, no, you don't get to use his perspective as your perspective, because and maybe Joel Embiid, if anybody can, maybe it's him, because what he's
been through some stuff.
What he grew up with and what he has accomplished. I don't even dislike Joel Embiid. I don't. I like him. I think generally he's one of the great posters to ever play the game, like Twitter posters to ever play professional sports. I think generally he is seems like a decent guy, and obviously has been a terrific player. All I know is this. Nikola Jokic was on his way to winning a third straight MVP. And then it became, well, we can't give it to him. We can't give it to him because he's never won a championship. He's never won the Western Conference Finals, and we can't give a third straight MVP to somebody who hasn't done this stuff. Well, what happens in a month when he has? What happens in a month when Nikola Jokic has raised the Larry O'Brien trophy? Because look, man, I don't know what the odds are right now. I know they're the favorites, the Nuggets, in the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers. So what happens when he goes and does the things that you said you wouldn't give him a third MVP because he hadn't done? Meanwhile, this other guy who you gave the MVP to this year hasn't even played in a conference finals. Mm-hmm. And Jokic is about to play in his second in 4 years, and really his second in a row when he's had a healthy supporting cast.
I mean, that's, in a lot of ways, that's how it's been for a long time, right? Like, Derrick Rose won an MVP. Derrick Rose was awesome the year he won the MVP. Truly awesome. He was not better than LeBron James that year.
No.
He wasn't.
Yeah, voter fatigue happens. Mm-hmm. And Nikola Jokic is not the best player to fall victim to voter fatigue, because Michael Jordan should have probably won it every single year.
Every year, yeah.
And didn't.
He also believes that.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. They gave it to Karl Malone. Like, one year they gave it to David Robinson, and Hakeem Olajuwon took it so personally, ate his lunch in the Western Conference Finals that year. So, like, I get it. Sometimes they get it wrong, but just... the dialogue was so stupid. And it looks even worse now in retrospect, and it will look even worse if in a month Nikola Jokic is an NBA champion.
No disagreement for me.
Meanwhile, quickly to the NHL, they've got 3/4 of the conference finals set. Once again, we will not have a Canadian winner of the Stanley Cup. It will still be 1993, the last time a Canadian team won the Cup. The conference finals are Florida and Carolina in the East. In the West, it's Vegas and either Seattle or Dallas, depending on who wins tonight's Game 7 in Dallas. I don't know if that's a nightmare or a dream come true for Gary Bettman in the NHL offices. The ratings are not going to be good, but if they get Vegas, Seattle, like, that's expansion teams, right? Like, Vegas has been around 6 years. This will be their third conference final. And Seattle has a chance tonight to reach a conference final in their second year of existence. It's supposed to be hard for expansion teams. Look at the history of expansion teams in literally every other sport.
Yep.
It doesn't happen like this, but it has happened in the NHL. And I'm sure there are probably some people thinking, man, I'd love to get in on this NHL. How do I get an expansion team? This seems like a pretty sweet deal. You'd be good right away. They've got it set up, their salary cap, the way they do the expansion draft. We got a chance to be good right away if we jump in on this NHL thing. So I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad. Like, I'm not one of those people who's like, well, TV ratings are the end all be all. Bad TV ratings means bad for, like, it could still be a good crowds and a good TV product and entertaining hockey if you're into that kind of thing. But name a Carolina Hurricane, Brendan.
Jordan Stahl.
They got one of the Stalls.
They have a Stahl. I don't know which one it is.
Name a Dallas Star.
Tyler Sagan.
Yeah, I think he is still kicking around.
Jamie Benn.
Yeah, he's still on the team.
That's all I got.
You think
because they were on the team when I watched hockey when the Blackhawks were
right? Yeah. The average hockey fan is not giving you more than one guy per team. Like, the NHL would have loved Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews to be in these conference finals, and they're not. That's the way hockey works.
Edmonton. Ugh. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Coming up after this, one headline from the high school sports world I want to get to. A rule change for basketball coming up this year. Yay or nay? We'll discuss next on 580 Sports Talk.
Why?
will be some changes coming to high school basketball starting next year. No, it is not the shot clock. There will not be a shot clock next year in Kansas. But this was announced today by the National Federation of State High School Associations, or the NFHS, everyone's favorite organization, that beginning in 23-24, high school basketball teams will no longer have the 1-and-1 bonus. Teams will shoot 2 free throws for common fouls when in the bonus, eliminating the 1-and-1 and setting new foul limits for each quarter. This is very similar to women's college basketball.
Yes.
So instead of playing 2 quarters and a half and your fouls rack up aggregate over the 2 quarters, so let's say you foul 7 times in the first quarter. Okay, well, you've got 7 fouls going into the second then.
So you start the second, you play that whole quarter, the other team in the bonus, and then you get to 10, and the double bonus comes into play.
Instead, the fouls will reset every quarter. You get 5 fouls per quarter at this point. After 5, then it becomes a 2-shot foul. Again, no more 1-and-1 in the high school ranks. So if it's the third quarter of a game and you foul 5 times, double bonus, or the bonus, only bonus for your opponent the rest of that quarter. But when you get to the 4th and that clock begins, those fouls are wiped off the board. The personals remain, obviously, but the team fouls are wiped from that point. The bonus goes away. It returns if you again commit 5 fouls. So if you foul a lot, this is a really good thing because it's going to wipe at the end of every quarter. Now, if you only foul once in the third quarter, it is just going to reset when you get to the 4th quarter as well, so on and so forth. I see the pros and cons of this. I think for high school games, there can be so much variance in terms of the number of fouls and the flow of the games. You get games that they feel like a professional environment, or certainly like a college environment. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you get games where you think, oh my God, like we've had 25 turnovers a team. We have been in the bonus since a minute left in the first quarter. Like this is a slog. And that just happens sometimes. I think this is probably a good way to mitigate some of those free throw parades you often end up getting, I think.
I think it is too. I think this is a big step in that direction. If you really think about it, how many games do you go through where, in the first half, especially, where neither team gets into the double bonus? You eliminate the single bonus entirely, so it's all double bonus. But 5 fouls in 8 minutes is a lot.
Yeah,
5 fouls in an 8-minute quarter is a lot. And you will see teams not get there in the first quarter. And then, then it wipes. Then you get 5 more in the second quarter before you start shooting free throws. I think it's terrific. I think that it allows for teams to maybe maintain a level of defensive aggressiveness for longer in games without worrying about, oh man, we got 4 fouls in the first quarter. We got to be, careful because we don't want to put them in the penalty for the whole second quarter or for the whole 4th quarter. No, you get a clean slate each quarter. I think it makes for better basketball. I really do. I like this rule a lot. I like how I've watched a lot more women's college basketball the last handful of years.
A lot of people have.
Yeah, I'm one of many people who can say that. And I have really liked how the game flows, and I like that the not having the 1-and-1 and then the going into the double penalty. I like how the NBA does it the same way. You get 5 fouls. Now they have a last 2 minutes rule where if you have less than 5 fouls, but you foul inside the last 2 minutes, then the next foul, no matter what, puts the team in the bonus. So you don't have like a team with no fouls and they're scurrying around to commit 5 fouls, put teams on the line late. I don't know if you can keep track of that well enough to implement that in high school women's college basketball, but I'd like to see that rule too. Fewer free throws allows for a better, more free-flowing basketball game, and I'm all for that.
Yep, I think that's positive. I would say anecdotally, I feel like there were a lot more fouls this past year. Like, I felt like a lot of the games we did, teams were getting in foul trouble more often, and I'm sure that's just some sort of confirmation bias looking back on the high school basketball season. But no, I mean, yes, players are competing, coaches are competing, teams are competing. You want to win because that means people's jobs, that means people's futures. I understand all of that. But there is also an educational part of interscholastic sports that comes into play. And how much is anyone really gaining from a game in which someone shoots 40 free throws? Like, there's just not a whole lot you're gaining from that interscholastic experience.
I can't imagine it's fun to play in. And
No.
whistle, walk down the floor, shoot the free throws, whistle, walk down the floor, stand around while somebody shoots free throws. And I like getting rid of the single bonus too. Like the 1-and-1, definitely there's a drama element to that maybe you'll miss a little bit, but I don't know. I like knowing it's 2 free throws. I think that then it keeps, we're just going to foul their worst foul shooter because maybe he'll miss the front end and it'll be like a turnover. It changes that strategy a little bit. And in high school, I think that's a little more fair because, I mean, not every kid on a high school basketball team is a knock 'em dead free throw shooter.
This leaves men's college basketball as the only one with a 1-and-1. Or does the college women's game have a 1-and-1?
No.
Okay, so they're out on the 1-and-1 too. The men's game has the 1-and-1.
And the 20-minute halves.
And the 20-minute halves.
And the reason that's not going anywhere is because the TV contracts are written in such a way that they guarantee those 4 TV timeouts. There's 4 TV timeouts every half. We all know them by heart. The under 16, the under 12, the under 8, the under 4. Those are all written in.
Mm-hmm.
And once some new TV deals maybe get struck, maybe you could find a way to maneuver a little bit. So, okay, you get the under 5 in each quarter and you get the quarter break and then maybe one more TV timeout, like late in the game.
Yeah.
Or you just take a 30-second timeout every time there's a timeout on the floor. TV gets 30 seconds. Like, I don't know. But if they're going to change the structure of how men's college basketball works, it's not going to happen within like the next couple of years because the TV contracts are into the mid 2020s. That's the reason.
For what it's worth, I like that it's different. I like that it is unique. I understand the complaints. I don't care. I want it to be different. I don't want everything homogenized. More uniqueness.
That's a fair take, but once they do change it, and I think they will eventually, you'll like it so much you won't miss the old way.
You know what I noticed in that regard, that feeling recently? You're going to hate that I say this. I haven't thought about pitchers hitting in 2 years.
Yeah, you did just kind of assimilate to that.
Used to it.
Yeah, you're just used to. Yeah. Every team has a DH now.
I was a stalwart for so. I was thinking about Clayton Kershaw the other day, and I thought, pretty good at the plate. I thought, he hasn't batted in years. And you move on. As much as I didn't want it to change, it did, and now it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that take either. I think I'm right there with you.
We've got to get to a quick break. We'll preview Royals Padres and their series opener after this on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk from 3 until 6, we'll talk to Michael Swain from Fog.net for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll talk about Ernest Udeh and Zuby Ejiofor and their new visits and new destinations. We'll also talk some KU football tomorrow. Big commitment today for the Jayhawks. They landed a transfer from Auburn by the name of Dylan Brooks. No, not that Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks, 6'4" defensive end, former top 100 player in his recruiting class back in 2021, I believe it was. So that's a big get for KU. So we'll talk plenty of Jayhawks tomorrow. And we will, of course, also talk plenty of Royals baseball as they open a series with the San Diego Padres tonight. 8:40 first pitch, 8 o'clock pregame start on the Royals Radio Network, which, of course, you can hear right here on 580 WIBW. Brad Keller tonight for the boys in blue was all right his last time out. Michael Wacha on the mound for the Padres, who has actually a higher ERA this year than Brad Keller does by about a half a full point. The Padres have not been as good as they were expected to be so far this year.
No, they have not.
In fact, I think you could argue they've been a bit of a letdown so far this year, solely for the fact that they're not better than the Dodgers, which they've spent a lot of money to try to be.
Yeah, and then they keep finding out, they keep bumping their head. I know they beat the Dodgers in the playoffs last year, but they're 19-22. They're already 7 games back. The Dodgers shook off a slow start. They just beat them over the weekend again. Yeah, they're falling a bit behind. The good news for the Padres is that after a very slow start, Juan Soto is back to mashing. After coming back from his suspension for steroids or PEDs, whatever you want to call it, Fernando Tatis Jr. has swung a hot bat. Xander Bogaerts has been really good. There's just hasn't been anything behind those 3 guys. Manny Machado's off to a slow start. Nelson Cruz has been just okay. Matt Carpenter's been very average. Jake Cronenworth. There's a bunch of average guys right now, and kind of average in their rotation too, with Michael Wacha being sort of an avatar of that. So this is a very expensive baseball team playing like a very average one for now, but I'm sure they see this, and Padres fans probably see this as an opportunity to get right.
I would think so. I mean, let's be frank. I think every team in Major League Baseball is thinking that when they see look at the Brewers. They just won 3 games. All of a sudden, you go from 3 games up to 6 games up. You're feeling pretty darn good about yourself as you open up the middle of May. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to predict a Royals win in any of these games because, well, why would I do that? And I hate to say it, but it does feel like there's almost too much talent on this team for them to find many struggles with the Royals. It's baseball. Crazy things happen. But you look at those bats, and if you were to say, hey, who is Manny Machado going to finally break out against? Well, it's probably a team that has not very many good pitchers and is also going to be playing from behind a bunch. Like, I hate to say it, but that's kind of where we are with this Royals team.
Good text from the 785. Teams have agreed to allow Brad Keller to walk Fernando Tatis Jr. to lead off the game in order to save time in pitches.
By the way, speaking of rules and game changes that I don't even think about anymore, I was watching last night or 2 nights ago the Pac-12 softball championship, final game of their tournament. Utah upset UCLA, the 3-1. They did an intentional walk at one point. They walked Maya Brady, Tom's niece, who is UCLA's best player. And they actually pitched it. They threw 4 pitches outside the zone.
Weird.
And I thought, oh, damn.
I haven't seen one of these in a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Totally forgot about that. It was something I have, again, completely gotten used to, which I guess means baseball won, even though I don't really get it. But at the same time, like, I mean, if you're just going to throw 4 balls anyway, I mean, what does it really matter? Just let him walk down, save time. See, I'm against that. And here's why. He's going to throw those pitches all over the place anyway. So if it's not Tatis, it's going to be someone else.
Yeah, maybe Tatis will swing at him. I mean, he's not the most disciplined hitter. He might swing at a few.
Yeah, maybe you'll get lucky in that way. Again, 8:40 first pitch tonight, Royals versus the Padres. By the way, I should have pulled this up. How big of an underdog do you think the Royals are tonight?
I'm going to say they are +1. No, I'll say +210.
+210. Holy smokes. All right.
That's my guess.
You're a little bit off. +190. The Padres are -230, though. So if you wanted to win $100 betting on the Padres, you'd have to wager $230 and have them win tonight. Let's get to a quick break. Final words up next on 580 Sports Talk.
John Deere
Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word, Dan.
The Royals made 2 throwing errors on a stolen base and allowed 2 runners on base to score in the same play on Sunday. That is probably the low water mark, and I think will stand for a while as the low water mark of the Royals season. It can only get up or go up or get better from here, you would hope, but the Padres are going to be a formidable opponent on the road this week.
Final word for me today is that I don't know if Ernest Udeh is going to actually end up picking Kansas State or even TCU for that matter when he transfers. He's in the portal right now. He's scheduled to take visits at K-State and TCU soon after he visits Duke coming up in the near future. The rivalry doesn't need it, and I don't know if that's going to be the best fit for him and what he's looking for, but I tell you what, that would be spicy. A Jayhawk leaving Kansas to go to Kansas State, and a really darn good player at that. Ooh, the message boards and the tweets will be even more fiery than normal. That'll be exciting and also probably a little bit toxic. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. Again, Royals baseball tonight with pregame coverage beginning at 8 o'clock on the Royals Radio Network. But until tomorrow, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll talk to you then right here on 580 Sports Talk.